Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into a place that's somehow grander than a palace, grittier than a sewer, and filled with more contradictions than a politician's speech. Welcome to ancient Rome, where marble facades hide rotting foundations and hygiene was a team sport. So before you get too comfortable, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you enjoy drifting off to mildly disturbing, deeply factual history. Drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you, and burrow into your blankets. Have you ever wondered what the Eternal City actually smelled like before the invention of deodorant? Was it all rose petals and incense, or more like stagnant water, wood smoke, and a million people living without modern plumbing? How did the average citizen navigate a morning routine where the water was lead, poisoned, and the toothpaste was made of crushed bones? Let's find out. Congratulations. You have just woken up in the year 115 AD, in the heart of the Subura, Rome's most crowded, noisy, and notoriously fragrant district. It is the hour before dawn, the ante-lucem, and the air in your room is heavy. Not just with the stale warmth of sleep, but with the dense physical weight of the city pressing in from all sides. You are lying on a simple wooden frame, the ropes beneath the mattress creaking softly as you shift. The mattress itself is stuffed with straw or reeds, material that has absorbed the humidity of the night and the sweat of many nights before. There is no ventilation here. The shutters are drawn tight against the street, but they cannot block the invasion of the city's atmosphere. Breathe in. The first thing that hits you is the smoke. Rome runs on wood and charcoal. Even at this early hour, thousands of fires are smouldering in hypercausts, in kitchen braziers, in the ovens of the bakeries that have been working through the darkness. It is an acrid, sharp scent, coating the back of your throat with a fine layer of ash. It smells of burnt oak and pine, a dry, dusty aroma that clings to the curtains, the walls, and your own skin. Underneath the smoke, there is something damper, heavier. It is the scent of the Tiber River. It is not the clean, flowing river of a mountain spring, but a sluggish, brown artery that has collected the refuse of the countryside before it even reaches the city walls. In the stillness of the early morning, the dampness rises from the valley floor, carrying with it the mineral tang of mud, the rot of waterlogged vegetation, and the faint, unmistakable odor of standing water. It settles over the low-lying districts like a wet wool blanket, muffling the air, making it feel thick and hard to breathe. But these are just the background notes as you lie there, waiting for the sun to breach the 7 hills. You become aware of the more immediate, human smells. You are in an insula, a towering apartment block of brick and timber, 5 stories high, housing dozens of families. There is no running water on these upper floors. There are no flush toilets. The smell of the chamber pots, the lasagna, is inescapable. It is a sharp ammonia, rich scent that permeates the stairwells and the corridors. During the night, hundreds of people have relieved themselves in ceramic pots, and now, as the city begins to stir, that collective waste sits stagnant, waiting to be emptied. It mixes with the smell of unwashed bodies. Thousands of people sleeping in linen tunics that are washed perhaps once a week, in urine-based bleach. It is the smell of humanity in close quarters, a sour, yeasty, intimate odor that never truly leaves the stone walls of the apartment. Listen closely. The city is never truly silent. Even before the sun rises, there is the rumble of wheels. By imperial decree, heavy carts are only allowed to move through the streets at night to avoid congestion. You can hear the grinding of iron-rimmed wooden wheels against the basalt paving stones, the basoli. It is a low, vibrating thrum that travels up through the foundations of the building. You hear the shouts of drovers, the crack of whips, and the nervous braying of donkeys carrying vegetables, timber, and oil into the markets. Outside your window, the street level is a mixture of mud, dust, and refuse. Rome is a city of dust. In the summer, it is a fine, choking powder that coats your teeth. In the winter, it turns to a thick, clinging paste. Right now, in the pre-dawn grey, the dust is settling. It smells of crushed limestone and pulverized brick, the eternal construction dust of a city that is constantly being rebuilt. Mingling with the dust is the smell of food. Not the fresh, appetizing smell of a modern kitchen, but the heavy, oily scent of garum, fermented fish sauce. It is the ketchup of the ancient world, used in everything. The barrels in the shops below leak slightly, releasing a pungent, salty, fishy aroma that is as much a part of the Roman air as oxygen. It smells of brine and old protein, a scent that sticks to the back of the nose. And there are the animals. Rome is not just for humans. There are stray dogs sleeping in doorways, their fur matted and damp. There are chickens kept in coops on balconies, their droppings adding a sharp, acidic note to the air. There are the horses and mules of the night carts leaving steaming piles of manure on the cobblestones, which will soon be trodden into a fine paste by the morning rush of sandals. You push back the heavy wool blanket. It feels rough against your skin, slightly scratchy. The fabric is heavy, designed to last rather than to comfort. You sit up, and the air of the room feels chilly. There is no central heating here, only the residual warmth of bodies. You run a hand over your face. Your skin feels tacky, coated in a thin film of yesterday's oil and the night sweat. There is no sink to wash it off. No tap to turn, just a basin of cold, standing water from the night before, likely with a thin film of dust on the surface. This is your baseline. This is clean enough for the morning. You are a Roman citizen, the master of the known world, yet you wake up coated in the grime of an empire. The aqueducts bring millions of gallons of water to the city every day, but not a drop of it reaches your third-floor apartment. To get clean, you will have to leave this room, navigate the filth of the streets, and enter the industrial-scale cleaning machine that is the public bath. But that is for later. For now, you just sit in the dim light, listening to the cartwheels, smelling the smoke and the ammonia, and preparing yourself to face the day. The simple act of existing in Rome is a sensory assault. The air is not empty space. It is a solid thing, composed of smoke, dust, spice, and rot. And so your day in the eternal city begins. Not with a shower, but with a scratch, a yawn, and the realization that you probably won't be truly clean until the sun goes down again. The light filtering through the wooden shutters shifts from a dull grey to a pale, dusty yellow. It is time to move. You sit on the edge of the bed, your feet finding the rough terracotta tiles of the floor. They are cold. The kind of cold that seeps up through the soles of your feet and settles in your ankles. You run a hand through your hair. It feels heavy, slightly greasy at the roots. There were no showers last night. There were no showers the night before. Your scalp itches, a dull, persistent sensation that you have learned to ignore. Just like you ignore the distant shouting of the street vendors below. You scratch it absent-mindedly, your fingernails catching a few grains of sand that somehow made it into your bed. Sand is everywhere in Rome. It is in the mortar, in the wind, in your hair. You stand up and stretch. The air in the room is still stagnant, holding the warmth of your breath. You look at the basin of water on the small wooden table in the corner. It is a bronze bowl, dented on one side, filled with water drawn from the neighborhood fountain yesterday evening. A thin film has settled on the surface dust, perhaps a drowned gnat. You do not drink it. You cup your hands and splash it onto your face. It is shockingly cold. It wakes you up faster than the diluted wine you had for dinner. You rub your eyes trying to clear away the sleep crust, but without soap, you are essentially just moving the oil around your face. The Romans have no soap as we know it. No foamy, scented bars to lift away the dirt. There is only water and friction. You take a coarse linen cloth, grey with age and repeated use, and scrub your cheeks, your forehead, your neck. The fabric is rough, exfoliating your skin whether you want it to or not. It smells faintly of mildew and vinegar, the scent of a towel that never quite dries completely in the humid Roman winter. Now, the teeth. This is a ritual that would make a modern dentist weep. You pick up a small pot containing a rough, gritty powder. It is a mixture of crushed oyster shells and bones, pounded into a fine dust. You dip a wet finger into it, coating your skin in the abrasive grey paste, and then rub it vigorously against your teeth and gums. It tastes of chalk and the sea. It scrapes away the plaque, yes, but it also scrapes the enamel. You rinse your mouth with water and spit into a bucket. If you were wealthy, perhaps you would use a mouthwash imported from Portugal, urine aged and fermented, prized for its ammonia content to whiten teeth. But you are not wealthy. You just use water. Getting dressed is a simple, monotonous affair. There are no zippers, no buttons, no elastic waistbands to snap into place. You reach for your tunic, the tunica. It hangs on a wooden peg, a T-shaped garment of unbleached wool. It smells of you. It smells of the wood smoke from the brazier, the garlic from your dinner, and the sweat of the walk home yesterday. You pull it over your head. The wool is scratchy against your bare skin. It catches on your dry elbows. You cinch it at the waist with a simple leather belt, pulling the fabric up to let it blouse over the strap. This creates a pocket of air, a small insulation against the morning chill, and also a literal pocket, the sinus where you can store a coin purse or a scrap of bread. You sit back down to put on your footwear. These are not cushioned sneakers. They are caligay or simple sandals, leather soles studded with iron hobnails. The leather is stiff and cold. You wrap the thongs around your ankles, tying them tight. The iron nails scrape against the stone floor with a metallic scritch-scritch sound. These shoes offer no arch support, no shock absorption. They are merely a barrier between your foot and the filth of the street. You are dressed, you are awake, but you are not clean. You feel the layer of grime from yesterday still clinging to your shins, the dust in your ears, the stickiness in your armpits. The water in the basin has only touched your face and hands. The rest of you is a sealed ecosystem of stale air and unwashed skin wrapped in wool, waiting for the release of the afternoon baths. Before you can leave the apartment, there is a biological reality that must be addressed. In the corner of the room, tucked discreetly, or as discreetly as possible in a 12-foot square room, is the lasanum, the chamber pot. It is a simple vessel made of coarse terracotta, chipped at the rim. It has been sitting there all night. You do not need to look inside to know what it contains. The smell is thick, sharp, and unmistakably human. It is the scent of ammonia, concentrated and heavy. In a modern world, waste is whisked away instantly by a flush of clean water. Here, it sits, it waits. It is a physical object that you must handle. You are lucky, in a way, you live on the 3rd floor. If you lived on the 1st floor, you might have access to a cesspit or a connection to the sewer, though even those were prone to backflow and vermin. But up here, gravity is the only plumbing system available. You pick up the pot. It is heavy, sloshing dangerously as you lift it. You walk to the window. The shutters are open now, and the noise of the street is louder. You look down. The street is narrow, a canyon of brick and stone. Technically, there are laws against emptying this pot out the window. The Roman jurists have written extensively about the actio diffusus vel diectis, the law regarding things thrown or poured out. If you hit a passerby, you can be fined. If you damage property, you must pay. But look at the street below. Look at the stain on the wall opposite yours. Look at the damp, dark streak running down the side of your own building. Everyone does it. At night, under the cover of darkness, the windows open. A warning is whispered, or not, and the contents are flung into the void. But it is morning now. The street is full of people. You cannot simply dump it. You must carry it. You walk to the door of your apartment and step into the hallway. It is dark here, lit only by a single sputtering oil lamp in a niche. The air in the stairwell is cooler than the room, but it smells worse. It smells of damp rot and old urine. You are not the only one moving waste this morning. You begin the descent. The stairs are steep, made of wood that feels spongy in places. Worn down by generations of sandals, you grip the handle of the pot tightly. One slip, one stumble, and you will be covered in your own filth, with no shower to wash it off. You move slowly, stepping aside as a neighbor comes up, carrying a bucket of water. You do not make eye contact. This is a private shame made public by necessity. At the bottom of the stairs, near the entrance of the insula, there is a large vat. It is a dolium, a massive clay jar sunk partially into the ground. The smell emanating from it is eye-watering. This is the collection point. You approach the vat, holding your breath, and pour the contents of your pot into the slurry. This waste is not just garbage, it is a commodity. Fullers, the laundry workers of Rome, will come to collect urine from these vats. The ammonia is a powerful bleaching agent. They will use it to whiten togas, stomping on the clothes in vats of urine to lift out the stains. Your waste today will be someone else's cleaning product tomorrow. It is a disturbingly efficient cycle of recycling. You shake the last drops from the pot. You cannot rinse it out here. Water is too precious to waste on cleaning a toilet pot. You will simply carry the empty, smelling vessel back upstairs later. But for now, you leave it near the door in a designated niche for your family. Your hands feel dirty. You wipe them on the side of your tunic. It is a futile gesture. The bacteria are there, invisible and teeming. You have touched the vessel of decay. And now, unburdened but feeling heavier than ever, you turn towards the open archway of the entrance. The street awaits. The lasanum is empty, but the city is full. You step out of the dark, cool entryway of the insula and into the assault of the street. The light is brighter here, but the air is thicker. You are standing in a vicus, a narrow neighborhood street, barely 10 feet wide. Look down at your feet. The paving stones are large, irregular polygons of basalt, smooth and grey. But you can barely see them. They are coated in a layer of muck that defies simple categorization. It is a mixture of mud brought in from the countryside, dust settled from the brickworks, animal dung from the donkey carts, and the slop that was thrown from the windows during the night. It is a treacherous, slippery paste. You step carefully. The Romans have installed stepping stones, large, raised blocks placed at intervals across the street. These allow pedestrians to cross without stepping into the deepest sludge that accumulates in the center gutter. You hop onto one of these stones. It is slick with moss and slime. You balance there for a moment, waiting for a gap in the traffic. And there is traffic. Not cars, but a river of humanity. It is a chaotic shoulder-to-shoulder crush. A man pushes past you carrying a tray of loaves, the bread smelling of yeast and wood smoke. A slave hurries by with a heavy amphora of wine on his shoulder, sweating profusely. A group of soldiers, off duty, swagger through the mud, their hobnailed boots sparking against the exposed stone. You jump to the next stone, then to the sidewalk. The sidewalk is raised high, almost 2 feet above the street level, a testament to how deep the water and filth can get during the heavy rains. You are safe from the sludge for a moment, but now you must navigate the crowd. The noise is deafening. Iron tires on stone, the shouting of shopkeepers. The hammering of a coppersmith working right there on the street corner, banging a sheet of metal into a bowl. There are no zoning laws here. A butcher shop sits next to a barber, next to a shrine, next to a private home. You walk past a butcher's stall. Carcasses of pigs and goats hang from hooks in the open air. There is no refrigeration. Flies buzz in a dark, shifting cloud around the meat. The blood drips onto the sidewalk, mixing with the dust to form a dark, sticky crust. The smell of raw meat, slightly turned in the heat, hits you. You hold your breath and push past. Next is a phallonica, a laundry. Remember the urine. You smell it now. Large vats stand in the front of the shop. Men are standing in them, waist deep, trampling wet togas. The smell of stale urine is overpowering, sharp and stinging. They are laughing, chatting, as they march in place in the yellow fluid. This is hygiene in Rome. To get clean, you must first be washed in waste. You keep your head down. To look up is to risk catching the contents of a chamber pot that missed the night schedule. To look too closely at the ground is to see the squashed remains of rats and the filth of 1,000 dogs. You develop a 1,000-yard stare, focusing on a point in the middle distance, navigating by instinct. Your tunic catches on a rough brick wall as you squeeze past a donkey cart blocking the narrow path. You pull it free. A smear of red brick dust is now on your shoulder. Another layer of grime to add to the collection. You are heading towards the Baths of Trajan, a beacon of marble and water rising above the slums. But to get there, you must swim through this river of filth. The contrast is the defining feature of your life. To reach the place of purity, you must wade through the muck. The city is a gauntlet. Every step kicks up dust. Every breath pulls in the scent of rotten commerce. You are a pilgrim of hygiene walking through the valley of dirt. As you trudge upward, leaving the low-lying subura and climbing the Esquiline hill, the air changes slightly. It becomes a fraction cleaner, a little less heavy with the scent of the sewer. Ahead of you, dominating the skyline, is the source of the city's lifeblood, the aqueduct. You pause for a moment to catch your breath, and you look at the massive arcade of the Aqua Traiana. It is a triumph of engineering that makes the chaos of the streets below look even more pathetic by comparison. Rows of arches, constructed from warm travertine stone and red brick, march across the landscape with military precision. They are 50-60 feet high, carrying a stone channel wrapped in lead and concrete. Inside that channel, water is flowing. Millions of gallons of it. Stop and think about the journey that water has taken to get here. It started days ago, in springs fed by volcanic lakes 30-40 miles away in the hills. It was captured in a pristine basin, cold and clear. Then, gravity took hold. The Romans didn't use pumps to move this volume of water. They used mathematics. The entire structure slopes downward, at a gradient of just a few inches for every 100 feet. A consistent, relentless decline that keeps the water moving. Not too fast to erode the stone, not too slow to stagnate. It has flowed through tunnels dug by hand through solid rock, lit by oil lamps and choked with dust. It has crossed valleys on bridges that are wonders of the world. It has passed through settling tanks, massive subterranean chambers where the flow slows down just enough for the mud and silt to sink to the bottom, so that only the clearer water continues. But is it clean? Not by modern standards. There is no chlorine, no filtration membranes. Along the way, roots from trees have cracked the capping stones. Small animals, lizards, rats, birds have found their way into the channel and drowned, their bodies decomposing in the dark, rushing current. The water absorbs the minerals of the rock, the lead of the pipes, and the organic matter of the journey. By the time it reaches the distribution tank, the Castellum Aquae at the city walls, it is cool, yes, but it is a biological soup. From there, it is forced into lead pipes, Fistulae, stamped with the name of the emperor and the manufacturer. Lead, a heavy, soft metal that is easy to work with, easy to seal. It is also a neurotoxin. You can't see the lead leaching into the water, tasteless and invisible. You only know that the water is sweet. The pipes branch out like veins under the skin of the city. Some go to the emperor's palace. Some go to the public fountains, the lacus, where the poor fill their buckets. And a massive, thundering amount goes to the baths. You are walking towards the end point of this monumental effort. All that stone, all that labor, all that lead, just so you can scrape the dirt off your skin. The aqueduct hums with a low vibration you can feel in the ground, the force of water rushing under pressure. It is the heartbeat of Rome. Without it, the city is just a dry, dusty collection of bricks. With it, it is a civilization. You continue your climb. The shadow of the aqueduct falls over you, cooling the air. You run your hand along one of the massive pillars. The stone is rough, warm from the sun. High above, you hear the faint gurgle of the water. It is the sound of luxury. It is the sound of Rome's dominance over nature. And soon, you will be submerged in it. The transition is abrupt. One moment, you are in the chaotic, narrow street, dodging carts and stepping in mud. The next, you are passing through a massive gateway and into a different world. You have arrived at the Thermae. The scale of the building is difficult to comprehend. It is not just a building, it is a complex the size of a small town. The exterior walls are faced with brick, towering high above you, punctuated by massive arched windows that gleam with mica or glass. You approach the entrance turnstiles. There is a fee, but it is nominal, a quadrans, the smallest coin in the Roman currency. It is cheap enough that almost anyone can enter, freemen, slaves, foreigners. This is the great equalizer. Inside the baths, the senator strips naked, just like the baker. You drop your cold copper coin into the hand of the bow-neater, the gatekeeper. He grunts, waving you through. The first thing that hits you is the sound. The acoustics of the Thermae are designed to amplify high-vaulted ceilings, marble floors, stone walls. The sound of hundreds of voices echoes and bounces, creating a constant, roaring hum. It is like entering a massive indoor train station. But instead of trains, there is the sound of splashing water, the slap of wet skin on marble, the shouting of cake sellers, the grunts of men lifting weights. Then, the smell. It is distinct from the street. The smell of the street was organic decay. The smell of the baths is chemical and humid. It smells of wood smoke from the massive furnaces heating the water. It smells of olive oil, rancid and fresh mixed together. It smells of unwashed bodies concentrating in one place. And underneath it all, a faint, rotten egg smell of sulfur. If the water source happens to be mineral, rich, you step into the grand atrium. The floor beneath your sandals changes from mud-slicked basalt to smooth, cool mosaic. Millions of tiny tesserae, black and white, form intricate patterns of dolphins, tritons, and geometric waves. It is dizzying. You are walking on art. Columns of Egyptian granite polished to a glass-like sheen soar 40 feet into the air, holding up a vaulted ceiling painted in vivid reds and blues. Light streams down from clerestory windows high above, cutting through the steam that drifts from the inner rooms. Dust motes dance in the beams of light. But here, the dust feels lazy, suspended in the humidity. You feel small. That is the point. The architecture is designed to make you feel the power of the state. The empire built this. The empire heats this water. The empire cleans you. You walk past statues of gods and emperors, their marble eyes staring blankly at the throngs of half-naked men. You are still wearing your dirty tunic, your dusty sandals. You feel out of place in your clothes. Everyone else here is in various stages of undress, draped in towels or completely nude. You need to shed your outer layer. You need to become part of the collective. You head towards the apoditerium, the changing room. The air gets warmer as you move deeper into the complex. The humidity starts to cling to your tunic. You can feel the sweat starting to prickle on your back. The anticipation builds. You are leaving the dirt of Rome behind, or so you think. In reality, you are just trading the dry dirt of the street for the wet dirt of the bath. But for now, amidst the marble and the grandeur, it feels like paradise. You step through a heavy bronze doorway into the apoditerium. The changing room. The acoustics here are tighter, sharper. The cavernous echo of the main hall is replaced by the intimate, muffled sounds of rustling fabric and bare feet scuffling on stone. The room is lined with benches made of limestone worn smooth by the backsides of 1,000,000 Romans. Above the benches, cut directly into the thick brick walls, are rows of square niches. Cubby holes. These are the lockers of the ancient world. There are no padlocks, no combination dials, just open, shadowed squares of stone. The air here is thick and unmistakably human. It smells of damp wool, that specific, wet dog scent of natural fibre that has been rained on, sweated in, and never quite dried. It mixes with the smell of leather sandals and the lingering odour of unwashed bodies disrobing after a long day. It is a warm, stagnant smell, like the inside of a laundry hamper that hasn't been emptied in a week. You find an empty spot on a bench. It is crowded. Men are everywhere, stripping off their tunics. Some are wealthy, accompanied by slaves who fold their garments with precision. Others are poor, shoving their rough rags into a ball. You untie your belt, you pull the heavy, scratchy wool of your tunic over your head. The cool air hits your damp skin. You are naked now, save for your sandals, which you remove last. You fold your tunic. You place it, along with your belt and your sandals, into one of the niches. You look at it. It looks vulnerable. Theft in the baths is rampant. It is so common that there are specific curses written on lead tablets found in temple springs, begging the gods to punish the person who stole a tunic or a cloak. May the thief who took my cloak lose his eyes and his bowels. They read, "You do not have a slave to watch your things. You have to trust the Capsarius. He is a bath attendant, usually a slave himself, who sits in the corner on a high stool. His job is to watch the niches, but he is tired, he is bored, and he is easily bribed. For a few copper coins, he might look the other way while someone swaps your decent wool tunic for a moth-eaten rag. Or perhaps he is the ringleader of the thieves himself. You catch his eye. You toss him a small coin, a semes. He catches it, nods once, and goes back to staring at the wall. It is not a guarantee, but it is insurance. You look back at your niche, one last time. Your worldly possessions are sitting there, exposed. The only thing standing between you and a naked walk home through the subura is the apathy of a teenager on a stool. You turn away. You are now part of the herd, naked, vulnerable, and indistinguishable from the man next to you. You are ready to begin the process. Not washing. Not yet. First, you must get dirty. You walk out of the changing room and into the palastra. This is the exercise yard, an open-air courtyard surrounded by a colonnade. The floor here is not marble. It is packed earth or sand. The sun is shining down, but the air is filled with a fine golden haze dust. The Romans believed that to clean the body, one must first work it. You cannot simply wash away the lethargy of the city. You must sweat it out. But you do not sweat dry. You sweat in oil. You walk to a vendor standing by a pillar. He has a large amphora and a stack of small, shallow flasks called airy ballows. You pay him, and he pours a measure of olive oil into your flask. It is not the extra virgin, cold-pressed oil you might dip bread into. It is oleum, often lower grade, thick and green gold. It smells rich, grassy, and slightly rancid, having been stored in the sun. You find a space in the yard. You pour the oil into your palm. It is cool and viscous. You begin to rub it onto your body, your arms, your chest, your legs. You coat yourself in it. You become slick, gleaming in the sunlight. The oil traps the dirt that is already on your skin. It seeps into your pores, mixing with your natural sebum. You are basting yourself. But the ritual is not finished. You look around. Men are wrestling. They are lifting heavy lead weights, grunting with effort. They are running in circles, and they are covered in dust. You walk to the edge of the sandpit. You reach down and grab a handful of fine, dry earth, and you throw it on yourself. You rub it in. The dust sticks to the oil. It turns into a grey-green paste on your skin. This is deliberate. The abrasive dust acts as a scrub. It gives the strigil, the scraping tool, something to grip. You join a game of trigon, a ball game played by 3 people in a triangle. You run, you jump, you sweat. The sweat breaks out from underneath the layer of oil and dust. It mixes with the paste, turning it into a sludge that runs down your back. You can feel the grit grinding against your skin with every movement. You are now filthier than when you woke up. You are coated in a layer of mud made from olive oil, floor dust, and your own excretion. You look around. Everyone is the same, a yard full of glistening, muddy statues, heaving with exertion. The smell is intense, hot oil, hot sand, and the sharp tang of fresh sweat. It is the smell of the palastra. You wipe your forehead with the back of your hand. It comes away black. You are ready. You are sufficiently marinated in the filth of Rome. It is time to scrape it off. You step out of the sun and into the shade of the colonnade. Your breathing is heavy. Your skin feels tight, encased in the drying mixture of mud and oil. It is an uncomfortable sensation, like being covered in a clay mask from head to toe. You approach a bench where a slave is waiting. Or, if you are alone, you find a spot against the wall to do it yourself. You reach for your strigil. The strigil is a curved metal tool, usually made of bronze or iron. It looks like a sickle with a dull blade or a long curved shoehorn. It is not sharp enough to cut, but the edge is firm. It is designed to squeegee the sludge off your body. You press the concave edge of the strigil against your forearm. You apply pressure, you pull scrape. The tool drags through the layer of oil and dirt. It gathers the mixture, piling it up in the curve of the blade. The sensation is intense. It is not a gentle caress. It is a hard scraping of metal against bone and muscle. It pulls at the fine hairs on your arms. It reddens the skin underneath. You look at what the strigil has collected. It is a dark grey goo. The Greeks call it gloios. It is a mixture of olive oil, sweat, dead skin cells, street dust, and the hair you just ripped out. It drips from the blade of the strigil onto the floor. Scrape, scrape, scrape. The sound is rhythmic. All around you, the sound of metal on skin echoes off the stone walls. Shh. Sheshke. It is the soundtrack of Roman hygiene. You move to your thighs, your calves, your chest. If you have a slave, he does your back. He presses hard, digging the metal into your shoulder blades, removing the day's burden. If you are alone, you contort yourself, reaching over your shoulder, scraping blindly. The pile of gloios on the floor grows. It is a biohazard, but here is the disturbing truth. This sludge is valuable. The bath attendants, the slaves, will collect this mixture of sweat and dirt. They will scrape it off the floor and put it into jars. Why? Because Roman doctors believe it has medicinal properties. They sell it. It is used to treat inflammation, to soothe aching joints, even to cure genital warts. People will rub your discarded sweat and dirt onto their bodies as a cure. You finish scraping. You are red, you are raw, but the heavy layer of oil is gone. You feel lighter, stripped down, but you are still not clean. You are merely scraped. Your pores are open. Your skin is sensitized. Now, you must subject it to the temperature gauntlet. You drop your strigil into your kit. You step over the pile of grey sludge you left on the floor. You move towards the heavy wooden door that leads to the interior. The heat is waiting. You push through the heavy doors and the air changes instantly. The dry, dusty heat of the palastra is gone. In its place is a warm, humid embrace. You have entered the tepidarium, the warm room. This is the airlock of the bath complex. There are no pools here, just benches. The room is dimly lit, the windows high and narrow to keep the heat in. The walls are marble, warm to the touch. The floor is pleasant under your feet. You sit down. The purpose of this room is acclimatization. You cannot go from the cold street to the inferno of the hot room without shocking your system. You must cook slowly. You sit and wait. The humidity here is high. Condensation gathers on the marble walls, trickling down in slow, erratic lines. It gathers on you too. You are not sweating from exertion anymore. You are sweating from the environment. Your pores, scraped clean by the strigil, begin to dilate. They open wide, releasing whatever toxins are left deep in your skin. The room is quiet. People speak in hushed tones here. It is a place of passive waiting. You look at your neighbors. A merchant with a potbelly, his skin flushing pink. A soldier with scars on his chest, staring at the ceiling. You are all sitting in a row, marinating in the warm, wet air. The air smells different here. It smells of damp stone and ancient mold. The steam that drifts in from the next room carries a metallic tang. You breathe it in. It feels heavy in your lungs. You lean back against the wall. It is warm behind that marble slab. Hot air is circulating. You can feel the vibration of the furnaces deep below the floor. You are sitting inside a machine designed to boil you alive, very gently. You stay here for 20 minutes, maybe 30. Time feels sluggish. The heat makes you drowsy. The sharp edges of the day begin to soften. But this is just the appetizer. The main course is through the next door. You can see the steam billowing out from under the frame. You can hear the hiss of water on hot stone. You stand up, your legs feel loose, rubbery. Your skin is damp and glistening. You are ready for the caldarium. You are ready to burn. You push past the heavy leather curtain that separates the warm room from the hot. The heat hits you like a physical blow. It is a wall of wet, suffocating warmth that instantly condenses in your lungs. You have entered the caldarium. If the tepidarium was a waiting room, this is the furnace. The temperature here can reach over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 38 degrees Celsius with 100% humidity. Visibility is low. The air is thick with steam rising from the central plunge bath, the alveus. It swirls around the columns, obscuring the vaulted ceiling, turning the other bathers into ghostly, sweating silhouettes. You take a step forward. You are wearing heavy wooden sandals now, clogs with thick soles. You must. The floor beneath you is a beautiful mosaic of marine life, but it is dangerously hot. Without the wood to insulate your feet, the tiles would blister your soles in seconds. You can feel the heat radiating up through the wood, warming the arches of your feet. You find a place on the marble steps surrounding the central pool. The marble is hot to the touch. You have to lay down your towel before you can sit. The air is heavy, hard to breathe. It feels solid, weighing down on your chest. You take shallow breaths, tasting the sulfur and the metallic tang of the lead pipes. Look at your skin. The sweat is no longer beading, it is streaming. It runs into your eyes, stinging with salt. It drips off your nose. You are melting. This is the intention. The Romans believe that the heat cooks the humors, balancing the body's internal fluids. You are being boiled in your own juices. The sound in here is muffled by the steam. Voices are low, lethargic. The only sharp sound is the splash of water as someone ladles hot water over their head from a bronze basin. You are surrounded by bodies. A senator sits next to a fishmonger. In the steam, their ranks are invisible. They are just two red-faced, sweating mammals gasping for air. You can smell them. The heat amplifies odors. The garlic from someone's lunch, the stale wine from someone's breath, the lingering scent of the oil they scraped off earlier. It all mixes into a dense, humid perfuminity. You look up at the ceiling. It is fluted, grooved with channels. This is a brilliant piece of engineering. The condensation that gathers on the ceiling doesn't drip down as cold, annoying rain on the bathers. Instead, it runs down the grooves, channeling into the walls and flowing down to the floor. You sit there, your heart rate rising. Thump, thump, thump. Your body is working hard just to exist in this temperature. You are inducing a fever. You are purging. But as the sweat pours out of you, joining the puddles on the floor, you have to wonder, is it cleansing? Or are you just stewing in a communal pot of vaporized city grime? While you sit sweating on the marble bench, oblivious to the world, a completely different reality exists, just 12 inches beneath your feet. To understand the caldarium, you must understand the hellscape that powers it. If you could dissolve the floor, you would see a forest of brick pillars. This is the hypercaust, the fire underneath. The floor you are sitting on is a suspended floor, a suspensura. It rests on stacks of square tiles, or pilli, about 2 feet high. These pillars create a crawl space, a hollow chamber that runs under the entire room. At the edge of the building, outside in the service yard, is the praefurnium. The furnace here, slaves often, convicts or prisoners of war, work in shifts that act as a death sentence. They shovel wood and charcoal into massive roaring fires. The heat from these fires is drawn into the crawl space under the floor. It is pitch black down there, save for the orange glow of the furnace mouth. The air is filled with smoke, ash, and carbon monoxide. The temperature is lethal. The slaves crawl through the dust and the soot to clean the flues, coughing their lungs out in the dark. The hot gas and smoke from the fire circulate around the brick pillars, heating the floor tiles above. But the genius and the horror doesn't stop there. The walls of the caldarium are lined with tubuli hollow, rectangular terracotta tubes stacked on top of each other. The hot air flows up from under the floor, through these wall tubes, and out of vents in the roof. You are sitting inside a chimney. The heat radiating from the wall behind your back comes from the exhaust smoke of a fire tended by a dying man. The floor burning your feet is the lid of a furnace. The engineering is flawless. The heat distribution is perfectly even. There are no cold spots in a Roman bath. It consumes entire forests. The baths of Rome require tons of wood every single day. The countryside is stripped bare to feed the voracious appetite of the hypocaust. As you wipe the sweat from your brow, enjoying the luxury of the warmth, you are the beneficiary of an industrial machine that eats trees and lives. The vibration you felt earlier, that is the roar of the draft, the fire sucking in oxygen to keep the floor hot enough to blister skin. It is a marvel of the ancient world, hidden away so that the citizens above never have to see the soot or smell the smoke. You just float in the invisible warmth, separated from the fire by a few inches of concrete and mosaic. The heat is becoming unbearable. It is time to enter the water. You stand up, your head spinning slightly from the temperature, and move towards the alveus. The hot plunge bath. It is a large rectangular pool lined with marble steps. The water is steaming, fed directly from a boiler located right over the furnace. You step in. The water is hot, almost scalding. You sink down until it reaches your chin. Relief. Not exactly look at the surface of the water. In the dim light, you can see an iridescent sheen, an oil slick. This is not petroleum, it is olive oil. It is the residue of hundreds of men who have soaked here before you today. Despite the scraping, despite the strigil, oil remains on the skin. It washes off in the hot water, floating to the top to form a greasy film that coats the marble rim. Floating in that film are other things: dead skin, hairs, the lint from towels. The water is not circulated. There are no pumps and filters cycling the water through sand or charcoal to clean it. It is a standing pool. Fresh water flows in constantly, yes, and an overflow pipe takes some of the top layer away, but the turnover rate is slow. The water you are sitting in is largely the same water that was here an hour ago. And who was here an hour ago? The baths are open to everyone. There is no health screening at the door. Men with open sores, weeping ulcers, and skin rashes come here specifically because they believe the hot water will cure them. You are sharing this bath with them. Roman medical texts actually recommend bathing for dysentery, for boils, for gangrene. A man with a bandage on his leg sits across from you. The bandage is wet, unraveling in the water. Whatever infection he is fighting is now drifting through the currents, swirling around your ankles. The water is a soup of bacteria. E. coli, Giardia, Staphylococcus. They thrive in the warm, wet environment. You keep your mouth tightly shut. You try not to splash. You realize that while the heat feels good on your muscles, you are essentially marinating in a broth of other people's pathogens. There is no chlorine smell, just the wet, heavy smell of sulfur and unwashed humanity. You feel something brush against your leg, a piece of moss, a bandage. You don't want to know. You move to the other side of the pool, but the water is the same everywhere. The Romans pride themselves on cleanliness. But this communal soaking is a vector for disease. The silence of the room is broken by a cough, a wet, rattling cough from a man leaning back in the corner. The droplets settle on the surface of the water, joining the oil slick. You decide you have had enough of the heat. You climb out of the pool. Your skin is red, pulsing with blood. You are covered in a thin layer of the bath water, a mixture of sweat, oil, and invisible microbes. You need to seal yourself. You need the cold. You leave the suffocating steam of the caldarium, passing quickly back through the tepidarium to cool down slightly, and then you push open the doors to the frigidarium, the cold room. The scale returns. This room is massive, often the center of the entire complex. The ceiling soars even higher here, an immense cross vault decorated with stucco and blue paint. The air is crisp, cool, and dry. It feels sharp in your lungs after the swamp-like atmosphere of the hot room. In the center is a massive pool of unheated water. It is dark, looking almost black against the white marble coping. You walk to the edge, your body is still radiating heat. You are flushed, your veins dilated. You stand on the edge, take a breath, and jump, splash. The shock is violent. The water is roughly 50 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 degrees Celsius. It hits your overheated skin like a physical slap. The air is punched out of your lungs. Gasp. Your heart stammers, then hammers against your ribs. This is the purpose. The thermal shock, the Romans believe this closes the pores. It hardens the skin. It stops the sweating instantly. You go under. The silence of the underwater world is absolute for a second. Then you break the surface, gasping. The acoustics of the frigidarium are bright and brittle. The sound of water splashing echoes sharply off the hard stone walls. Slap echo, splash echo. The water here feels cleaner, or at least clearer, than the hot soup of the caldarium. The cold inhibits bacterial growth somewhat, but it is still shared water. You tread water, your limbs feeling heavy and numb. The oil that was on your skin solidifies in the cold. Feeling waxy, you swim a few strokes. The cold is clarifying. It wakes you up from the lethargy of the heat. It makes you feel vigorous, alive Roman. This is the martial aspect of the bath, tuning the body against the elements. You climb out, shivering. A slave or your own hand throws a heavy towel around your shoulders. You are dripping on the mosaic floor. The transition is complete. You have been boiled, scraped, and frozen. You feel physically exhausted as if you have run a mile. But the ritual is not over. There are still biological needs to attend to. And for that, you must visit the most social, and perhaps the most disturbing room in the entire complex. The communal latrine. You step out of the frigidarium, clutching your towel, but the urge that began earlier in the morning has returned. You cannot ignore it. You must visit the latrina. In the modern world, the bathroom is a sanctuary of privacy. It is a locked door, a fan, a singular experience. In Rome, it is a social event. You walk into a rectangular room lined on three sides with marble benches. At first glance, it looks like a waiting room for a magistrate. But then you notice the holes. The bench is pierced every 2 feet by a keyhole-shaped opening. There are no dividers, no stalls, no modesty panels. 20 men are sitting there, side by side, their togas or tunics hiked up around their waists. They are chatting. They are discussing politics, the price of grain, the latest gladiator match. A wealthy merchant sits next to a street sweeper. Their knees are almost touching. You find an empty spot on the bench. The stone is cold against your skin. You arrange your towel to provide a shred of dignity, but it is a futile gesture. You sit, beneath you, deep in the darkness of the trench. Water is rushing. The Romans divert the wastewater from the baths, the water you just bathed in, to flush the latrines. It is a continuous roaring stream that carries the waste away instantly. It is efficient, yes, but the smell is peculiar. It is the smell of used bath water mixed with fresh sewage. But the true horror lies at your feet. Look down. In the floor, running parallel to the bench, is a small gutter or channel. Clean water flows through it constantly, and sitting in the channel at regular intervals are sticks. These are not just sticks, they are tassorium or xylospongium, a sea sponge tied to the end of a wooden rod. This is the Roman toilet paper. There is no soft disposable paper here, there is only the sponge, and it is communal. You watch the man next to you finish. He reaches down, grabs a stick from the gutter, and uses it. Then he rinses it in the running water of the channel, swirls it around a bucket of vinegar, mixed with salt that sits in the corner, if the facility is high class, and drops it back into the gutter for the next person. You stare at the sponge. It is grey, porous, and fraying. It has been used by hundreds of people this week alone. It is a bacterial colony on a stick. It is damp. It is shared. When your turn comes, you must make a choice. Do you use the sponge? Do you risk the diseases of 1,000 strangers? Or do you use your hand and wash it later? Most Romans use the sponge. It is the civilized way. You reach for the stick. The wood is slick with water. The sponge is heavy. You try not to think about who held it last. You try not to think about the dysentery that plagues the legions. You perform the necessary act, rinse the sponge in the vinegar bucket. The smell of acetic acid stinging your nose, and place it back in the running water. You wash your hands in a small fountain nearby, but you know deep down that you have just participated in a ritual that binds you to every other citizen in the most intimate and unsanitary way possible. You leave the latrine feeling lighter but distinctively unclean in a new way. You return to the main hall. You might think you are done, but in Rome, being clean means being smooth. Hair is considered uncivilized, a trait of the barbarians in the north. A proper Roman chest, armpit, and leg should be hairless. You hear them before you see them. High-pitched yelps, sharp intakes of breath, the occasional shout of Hercule by Hercules. You are approaching the corner of the bath complex dominated by the Ellipolus, the hair plucker. He is a specialist slave, usually with strong fingers and poor eyesight. Or perhaps he just chooses not to look at the pain he inflicts. He wanders through the crowd, calling out his trade in a thin, falsetto voice, advertising his services. You flag him down, you lie on a bench. The process begins. He does not use wax strips that pull hair out in one swift motion. He uses Valsella bronze tweezers. He attacks your armpits first. He grabs a single hair, yank. The pain is sharp and sudden. He moves fast. Yank, yank. He works with the rhythm of a machine. He does not care if he pinches the skin. He does not care if you bleed. In fact, tiny droplets of blood often well up where the coarse hair has been ripped from the root. If you are wealthy, or perhaps just sadistic, you might opt for the chemical method. He produces a pot of paste. It is a mixture of droplets of oil, resin, and ingredients you try not to think about. Sometimes it contains quicklime, sometimes arsenic sulfide, known as orpiment. He smears the paste onto your legs. It burns. It tingles. It is literally dissolving the hair and the top layer of your skin. It smells of sulfur and burning protein. You lie there, waiting for the chemical burn to do its work. When he scrapes it off with a blunt knife, the hair comes with it, leaving your skin red, raw, and inflamed. But smooth. The baths are noisy, but the soundtrack of the hair plucking corner is specific. It is a chorus of agony. The philosopher Seneca, who lived above a bathhouse, famously complained about the skinny, voiced hair plucker and the screams of his victims. It is torture disguised as grooming. You pay the Allipolus. You rub some oil onto your inflamed armpits to soothe the stinging. You are now hairless, red, and throbbing. You look like a plucked chicken, but you are a civilized plucked chicken. You are scraped, boiled, frozen, wiped, and plucked. You are nearing the end of your visit, but there is one more stop for many. The baths are not just a spa, they are a medical centre. Scattered around the edges of the Great Hall are small alcoves occupied by men with serious faces and dirty tools. These are the doctors, the medici, or often just enthusiastic quacks. You have a headache, a pain in your shoulder, a feeling of heaviness in your liver. They have a cure. You approach a table covered in jars. The doctor looks at you. He doesn't take your temperature. He doesn't check your blood pressure. He looks at your complexion. You are too full of blood, he says. It is stagnant. We must release the bad humours. He picks up a small iron lancet. It is not sterile. He wiped it on his tunic after the last patient. He grabs your arm. He finds a vein slice. He bleeds you right there into a bronze bowl. The blood flows dark and thick. He watches it, nodding sagely. He takes a pint, maybe more. You feel lightheaded. Good, he says. The pressure is gone. If you have a skin condition, he might reach for a jar of that grey sludge we saw earlier, the glyos, the scrapings from the gym floor. He smears the sweat and dirt of a gladiator onto your face. This contains the vitality of the athlete, he promises. You are literally spreading someone else's exertion onto your acne. He might prescribe a diet. Eat only snails for 3 days, he says. Or drink a mixture of wine and crushed millipedes. There are no regulations. No FDA, no malpractice suits. If you die, it was the will of the gods or your own weak constitution. You see a man getting a wound dressed nearby. The doctor is using honey and vinegar, which is actually effective, but he is also chanting a spell over it. Science and magic are tangled together here like roots in a pot. You decline the bloodletting today. You buy a small pot of gladiator ointment for your aching knees. It smells of rancid fat. You suspect it is just pig lard mixed with ash. You apply it anyway. The placebo effect is the strongest medicine available in 115 ADU. You are finally leaving the bath complex. The sun is setting. But as you step out, back into the cooling air of the evening, pause for a moment to consider where everything you just washed off has gone. The millions of gallons of water, the sweat, the oil, the hair, the blood from the lancets, the contents of the latrines. It all flows down. Beneath the streets of Rome lies a monster, the Cloaca Maxima, the Great Sewer. It is a massive underground river, encased in stone tunnels big enough to drive a wagon through. It was built centuries ago initially to drain the marshes, but now it serves as the digestive tract of the city. Everything feeds into it. The overflow from the baths crashes into the sewer, flushing the filth of the domus and the insulae along with it. It is a dark, wet underworld. There is no treatment plant. There is no separation of solids. It is just a rushing torrent of sludge. The smell rising from the storm drains, the manholes, is lethal, methane, hydrogen sulfide. Occasionally the sewer backs up. During the heavy rains of autumn, the Tiber River rises, blocking the exit of the cloaca. The sewage has nowhere to go. It reverses course. Imagine the horror. The latrines in the low-lying houses overflow. The street gutters bubble up with black water. The city drowns in its own waste. But today, the river is low. The waste flows out. It empties directly into the Tiber, just downstream from the bridges. The river turns brown and thick. The same river that is worshipped as a god. You walk towards home. You can hear the rushing of water beneath the pavement. It is the sound of the city purging itself. You feel clean, yes, but you know that beneath your sandals, just a few feet down, flows a river of unimaginable filth, carrying the DNA of 1 million people out to the sea. Rome is a golden city built on a foundation of sludge. And as the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in purple and gold, the great sewer flows on, silent and dark. The true enduring engineering marvel of the empire, you return to your apartment. The walk home has already coated your shins in a fresh layer of dust, but your body feels loose, relaxed by the heat and the cold. You are hungry, but before you eat, you notice a taste in your mouth. The metallic tang of the lead pipes, the lingering flavor of the garlic from lunch. You need to clean your mouth. You pick up the small pot you used this morning, the crushed bone powder, but tonight, you want something stronger. You reach for a small glass vial. It is expensive, imported. It contains Eber, or perhaps a specific liquid from Hispania. Roman poets like Catullus mocked people for this, but it is a widespread practice. The liquid is urine, not just any urine-aged urine, left to sit in vats until it ferments, breaking down into ammonia. Ammonia is a powerful cleaner. It cuts grease. It bleaches. You take a small sip. You do not swallow. You swish it between your teeth. The taste is indescribable, sharp, acrid. It burns the tongue. It brings tears to your eyes. You force it through the gaps in your teeth, letting the ammonia attack the plaque. You spit it out into the chamber pot. You rinse your mouth with water, again and again trying to kill the taste. But your teeth feel smooth. They look whiter. You have bleached them with waste. Then the makeup. If you are a woman or a fashionable man, you might apply a layer of cerussa, white lead. You open a small jar of thick, white paste. It provides a smooth, pale complexion, hiding the scars of smallpox or the redness of the sun. You dab it onto your cheeks. It feels heavy, clogging the pores you just opened in the bath. Lead is toxic. It absorbs through the skin. It causes madness, infertility, graying hair, and death. But you don't know that. You only know it makes you look like a marble statue. You apply the poison willingly. You paint death onto your face in the pursuit of beauty. You look in the polished bronze mirror. The reflection is dim, distorted. You see a pale face, white teeth. You look healthy. You look Roman. But you are slowly poisoning yourself with every morning ritual and every evening touch-up. The day ends as it began. You are back in your small room. The oil lamp flickers, casting long, dancing shadows on the peeling plaster walls. You strip off your tunic. You are naked again. You look at your body. It is pink from the scrubbing, smooth from the plucking. You are technically clean. But run your hand over your arm. Do you feel it? The grit. The walk home from the baths was windy. The dust of the street, the pulverized brick, the dried manure, the ash has already settled on your oiled skin. You have been out of the bath for less than an hour, and already the city is reclaiming you. You realize the futility of it. It is a cycle that never ends. You wash the city off, and the city puts itself back on. You climb into your bed. The sheets are the same ones from this morning. They still smell of yesterday's sweat. You lie down, pulling the scratchy wool blanket up to your chin. Outside, the noise of the carts begins again. The rumble of the night logistics, the shouting of the drovers. The city does not sleep. It just changes shifts. You close your eyes. You can smell the smoke again. You can smell the chamber pot in the corner filling up slowly through the night. You can smell the garum from the street below. You drift off to sleep, your skin tingling from the lead makeup, your gums burning from the ammonia, your belly full of bread and wine. You are a citizen of the greatest empire the world has ever known. You have aqueducts and heating and mosaics. You are civilized. But as you slip into unconsciousness, surrounded by the smells of a million people living in a valley of stone and mud, you realize the disturbing truth. You are never truly clean. You are just fighting a holding action against the dirt. And tomorrow, when the sun rises over the 7 hills, the battle begins again. Good night, citizens. And so, we leave the average Roman citizen in their bed, drifting between the smell of the chamber pot and the memory of the steam. We have walked the muddy streets, scraped the oil from our skin, sat in the communal latrine, and brushed our teeth with crushed bones. We tend to think of Rome as a gleaming empire of white marble and pristine togas. But tonight, we've seen the truth. It was a civilization built on human waste, lead pipes, and a constant, exhausting battle against filth. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the darker, smellier side of history, and you are still awake, stay with me, because the night is long and there are still corners of the city we haven't explored. Corners where the ammonia stings your eyes and the food might just kill you. Good night for now, but the history never sleeps. You might wonder, as you lie in your bed, how that rough wool tunic you wore today gets clean. You saw the laundry workers, the full-owns, earlier in the street, but you walked past quickly to avoid the smell. Now, let's go back. Let's step inside the Phallonica, the industrial laundry of ancient Rome. If you thought the public baths were an assault on the senses, the laundry is a war crime. You enter the workshop. It is usually located on the ground floor of an apartment block. The first thing that hits you is not just the smell of stale urine, it is the density of it. It hangs in the air like a fog, toe-clean clothes in a world without soap. You need alkali. You need something that dissolves grease and whitens fabric. The Romans found the perfect free source, human urine. Large clay jars are placed on street corners throughout the city. Passers-by relieve themselves in them. Slaves collect these jars daily and bring them here. This is the detergent. You watch the process. At the back of the shop are small stalls surrounded by low walls. Inside each stall stands a worker. He is barefoot. He is standing in a tub filled with a mixture of water, full as earth, a type of absorbent clay, and gallons of aged fermented urine. He is jumping. Splosh, splosh, splosh. This is the fulling dance. He is the washing machine. He tramples the cloth using his feet to agitate the fabric, forcing the ammonia, rich fluid through the fibers of the wool togas. He does this for hours. His legs are stained yellow. His skin is likely burned by the ammonia and the rough clay. He stops to pull the heavy wet wool up, wringing it out, then drops it back in to stomp again. There is no ventilation. The fumes burn the throat. Yet, he is chatting with the man in the next tub. They are used to it. Once the stomping is done, the clothes are rinsed. But is the water clean? It comes from the aqueduct overflow, or perhaps a well in the courtyard. It removes the worst of the smell, but the essence remains. The cloth is then hung out to dry on wicker frames. To whiten it further, they burn sulfur beneath the frame. The fumes of the sulfur bleach the fabric. So now, your clean toga smells of a distinct cocktail, a base note of urine, a top note of sulfur, and the earthy scent of the clay. This is the smell of a Roman senator. When you see them in the forum shining in their white robes, remember that brightness was bought with the labor of men stomping in human waste. Leaving the laundry. Let's talk about food. Not the ingredients, but the hygiene of eating. You are invited to a dinner party. A cena, you arrive at the host's house. You remove your street sandals. A slave washes your feet. This is a nice touch, considering what you stepped in on the way over. You enter the triclinium, the dining room. 3 couches are arranged in a U-shape. You do not sit at a table, you lie down. You recline on your left elbow, leaving your right hand free to eat. There are no forks. The Romans have spoons for soup, but for everything else, they use their fingers. You reach into a serving dish of pork stew. Your fingers are coated in sauce. You eat. You lick your fingers. You reach in again. So does everyone else. There is no double dipping rule. The communal dish is truly communal. The man next to you, who was coughing in the bathhouse earlier, is now digging his hand into the same bowl of figs as you. Napkins. They exist. They are called mappa. But often, guests bring their own. Or, in a pinch, they use the tablecloth. But the most common way to clean your hands during the meal is distinctly Roman. Slaves circulate with jugs of water and basins. They pour water over your greasy hands. But what do you dry them on? Sometimes a towel. Sometimes, in less refined households, the long hair of a slave boy is used as a napkin. And then there is the floor. As you eat, bones, shells, pits, and gristle are not put on a side plate. They are thrown on the floor. The floor of a Roman dining room is a graveyard of the meal. Chicken bones, lobster shells, clam shells. They accumulate around the couches. In wealthy houses, mosaics on the floor are actually designed to look like unswept garbage. The asarotos oikos, or unswept rooms style depicting fish skeletons and fruit peels. It is a joke, but in reality, real garbage is piling up. Dogs roam beneath the couches, snapping up the scraps. Sometimes they fight over a bone, bumping against your legs as you try to digest. And if you need to belch, it is considered polite. It shows you enjoyed the meal. If you need to pass gas. The Emperor Claudius supposedly passed a law allowing it at dinner tables, reasoning that holding it in was bad for health. So the soundscape of a Roman dinner is a symphony of chewing, burping, dogs growling, and bones hitting the floor. It is a messy, greasy, hand-to-mouth existence, even for the elite. Let's move from the dining room to the street corner, where a different kind of cutting happens. You need a shave. Or perhaps you have a toothache. You visit the tonsor. The barber, he is set up in the open air, perhaps under a simple awning. He has a stool, a basin, and a terrifying array of iron knives. You sit down. There is no shaving cream. He splashes some water on your face. He picks up the navacula, a curved iron razor. It is sharpened on a stone, but iron loses its edge quickly. He begins to scrape. It is a dry, harsh shave. Roman poets often compared a visit to the barber to a military flaying. Nicks and cuts are guaranteed. To stop the bleeding, he presses a spiderweb soaked in oil and vinegar onto your face. But the barber does more than shave beards. He pulls teeth. You have a rotting molar. The pain is blinding. You have been chewing on cloves and rinsing with vinegar for days, but it hasn't helped. You sit in the chair. There is no anesthesia. No numbing shot. He produces a pair of iron forceps. They look like pliers used for pulling nails out of wood. He might grip your head between his knees to hold you steady. He clamps the forceps onto the tooth. Crunch. If you are lucky, the tooth comes out whole. If you are unlucky, the crown snaps off, leaving the rotten roots embedded in the jaw. Then he has to dig. He uses a small probe to loosen the roots, digging into the gum while you scream. The passers-by on the street stop to watch. It is free entertainment. Once the tooth is out, you rinse your mouth with wine. He might pack the hole with spices. If you have a bladder stone, he does that too, but cutting for the stone. It involves invasive maneuvering and a sharp knife, right there in the shop with only strong men to hold you down. Hygiene. He wipes the knife on his tunic. The same knife he used to shave the man before you. The blood on the floor mixes with the hair clippings and the dust of the street. You pay him a few coins. You walk away with a handkerchief pressed to your jaw, spitting blood into the gutter, swearing to the gods that you will take better care of your teeth. Perhaps by using more of that urine mouthwash we discussed. Let's leave the city for a moment. Let's march. You are a legionary. One of the famed soldiers of Rome, you are marching 20 miles a day, carrying 60 pounds of gear. You are the iron fist of the empire. But let's look at your feet. You are wearing caligy, the military sandals. They are leather, strapped up the calf with heavy iron hobnails on the soles for grip. You are marching on Roman roads, hard, unforgiving stone. Mile after mile. The leather rubs. The straps dig in. Blisters are inevitable, but you cannot stop. If a blister pops, it becomes an open wound inside a dirty, sweaty leather boot. Hygiene on the march is minimal. You sleep in a tent with 7 other men. You smell of sweat, leather, and iron. Fungal infections are rampant. Trench foot is not a modern invention. The dampness, the mud, the lack of dry socks. Though Romans did wear udones, simple socks, they were often wet. If your foot becomes infected, you visit the medicus of the legion. He might cut away the dead skin. He might apply burning pitch. Or, if it is gangrenous, he might amputate. The Roman army is a machine, but it is a machine made of meat, and meat rots. Think of the camp latrines, a trench dug at the edge of the camp, thousands of men using it every morning before the march. The smell wafting over the tents, the flies landing on the food. Dysentery killed more Roman soldiers than enemy swords. The flux, as they called it. You are marching in formation, surrounded by men who are desperately ill, unable to stop, their waist running down their legs as they hold the line. This is the glory of Rome. Not the eagle on the standard, but the grit in the boot and the bacteria in the gut. Let's return to the city and look at the women of the elite. The matrons, they do not face the mud of the march, but they face a different kind of toxicity. Beauty in Rome is pain and poison. To achieve the pale skin that signifies you don't have to work in the sun, you need foundation. We mentioned white lead, cerussa, earlier. But there are other ingredients. Chalk marrow from animal bones, starch, but for blemishes, for spots. The renowned physician Galen recommends a specific cure, crocodile dung. Yes, the excrement of a Nile crocodile. It is dried, pulverized, and mixed into a paste. It is applied to the face to remove spots and brighten the complexion. Imagine the scent. You are a wealthy woman. You are wearing silk imported from China. You are wearing gold jewelry. And your face is smeared with the feces of a reptile. To cover the smell, you use perfume, heavy, oily perfumes made from myrrh, frankincense, and rose oil. But perfumes in Rome are not alcohol-based sprays. They are unguents, thick, greasy pastes. You smear them on your pulse points. In the heat of the Roman summer, the grease melts, running down your neck, mixing with the lead paint and the sweat for eyes. Coal, ash or soot mixed with oil, or antimony, another toxic heavy metal. You line your eyes with poison to make them look larger. For lips, red ochre, iron oxide, or cinnabar. Cinnabar is mercury sulfide. It is a brilliant, beautiful red. It is also deadly. Every time you lick your lips, you are ingesting mercury. It causes tremors, confusion, madness. The Roman matron is a walking chemical waste dump. Layer upon layer of lead, mercury, and animal dung, sealed with grease. She looks beautiful in the flickering candlelight. But beneath the mask, her skin is grey and dying, suffocated by the very things used to enhance it. Chapter 26, the corpse medicine. We have talked about urine and dung. Now we must talk about the dead. There is a disturbing belief in Rome, persisting late into the empire, that the bodies of the strong possess healing powers. Gladiators. They are the superstars of the arena. They are strong, virile, violent. When they die in the Colosseum, their bodies are not just waste. They are a pharmacy. Spectators would rush to the arena floor to drink the warm blood of a fallen gladiator. Why? To cure epilepsy. It was believed that the vitality of the warrior lived in the blood. Drinking it would transfer that strength to the weak. It went further. The liver of a gladiator might be sold to cure anemia and public executions. The touch of a dead man's hand was said to cure cysts or warts. This is a society that builds aqueducts and writes laws yet consumes human blood for medicine. It is a profound cognitive dissonance. You might visit an apothecary and buy skull moss, lichen grown on the skull of a dead soldier, or pulverized human bone to treat a fracture. Like cures like, they reasoned. So when you feel sick in Rome, you don't just take an herb. You might be consuming the remains of a man who died for entertainment just a few hours ago. You are a cannibal by prescription. Chapter 27, the catacombs and the puticuli. Finally, let us consider where the Romans go when the medicine fails. Burial inside the city walls is forbidden, so roads leading out of Rome, like the Appian Way, are lined with tombs, beautiful marble monuments for the rich. But what about the poor, the slaves, the beggars? They end up in the puticuli, the rotting pits. Located on the Esquiline Hill before the gardens were built there, these were mass open graves, not neat rows of headstones. Pits, bodies of the poor, the unwanted and dead animals were thrown in together. The smell was so bad that it was said to discolor the air. The soil turned black and greasy. Birds of prey circled overhead constantly. Stray dogs dragged bones out of the pits and into the nearby streets. If you lived in that neighborhood, the smell of decomposition was your daily reality. It was the smell of the city's failures. Later, the rich built gardens over these pits to hide them, horti macinatus, beautiful parks with fountains and statues. But underneath the roots of the rose bushes, thousands of skeletons lay tangled together. When you walk through a Roman garden, smelling the flowers, you are walking on a crust of earth floating over a sea of bone. The beauty of Rome is always just a thin veneer over the rot. And that, my friends, is the ultimate truth of the city. Marble on the surface, sludge and bone underneath. Sleep tight. Let us return to the dinner party, the convivium. You might have heard the word vomitorium and pictured a room specifically designed for purging food so one could eat more. While that is a myth, a vomitorium was actually just a stadium exit. The reality of Roman gluttony was no less disturbing. You are reclining on the couch. The meal has lasted for 6 hours. You are full, painfully full. But the host is bringing out another course. Boar stuffed with live thrushes. Dormice dipped in honey and poppy seeds. To stop eating is an insult. To continue eating is physically impossible. So, what do? You call for a slave, he brings you a feather. Or perhaps a cup of warm water mixed with salt and honey. An emetic, you do not leave the room. You might step just outside the dining area or call for a basin, right there at the couch. You tickle the back of your throat, a curge. It is a medical necessity in the eyes of the elite. To consume this much rich, heavy food flamingos' tongues, sows udders, fermented fish sauce, without purging would unbalance the humors. So you empty your stomach. The sound of retching mixes with the lyre music playing in the corner. The slave takes the basin away. He wipes your face with cool water. You rinse your mouth with wine. And then you pick up a piece of roast pork and start again. This cycle of consumption and expulsion is a display of wealth. It says, I have so much food, I can afford to waste it. Meanwhile, outside the door, the poor of the city are waiting for the dole, the grain handout, hoping for enough bread to survive the week. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of rich meat, heavy wine, and the faint, sour undertone of the purge. It is decadence rotting from the inside out. The Colosseum, the Flavian Amphitheatre, a marvel of engineering. 50,000 people cheering. We picture the glory. The gladiators in shining armor, but close your eyes and smell the arena. 50,000 people packed into stone seating under the blazing Italian sun. They have been there all day. There are no bathrooms in the seating area. People relieve themselves where they stand or in small jars they brought with them. The heat cooks the smell of thousands of unwashed bodies. But look down at the sand, the arena floor. It is soaked in blood. Not just human blood, but the blood of thousands of animals. In a single festival, hundreds of lions, bears, ostriches, and elephants might be slaughtered. The smell of eviscerated animals is heavy and metallic. The intestines are spilled onto the hot sand. The flies are a thick, black cloud. To combat this stench, the Romans engineered a solution, the spargians. High above the crowd, sailors from the imperial fleet operate a complex system of misting devices. They spray water mixed with saffron and perfume over the audience. A fine yellow mist drifts down. Imagine the combination. The sweet, cloying scent of saffron perfume mixing with the copper tang of blood, the musk of wild animals and the sweat of the crowd. It is a nauseating potpourri, a perfumed slaughterhouse. And beneath the floor, the hypogeum, the underground tunnels. Here, there is no perfume, just the smell of fear. Animals kept in dark, cramped cages. Gladiators waiting for their turn to die. The smell of their fear sweat, the oil on their skin, the infected wounds of the survivors. The roar of the crowd above sounds like thunder, but down in the dark it sounds like a hungry beast waiting to be fed. In every room we have visited, the bath, the bedroom, the dining hall, there have been figures we barely mentioned. The slaves in Rome. A slave is not a person. They are a speaking tool, a instrumentum vocale. Imagine the psychological horror of being furniture. You are a slave at a dinner party. Your job is to stand in the corner, holding a torch. You must stand perfectly still. You cannot shift your weight. You cannot swat a fly. You cannot cough. The hot wax from the torch drips onto your hand. It burns. You cannot flinch. If you drop the torch, you will be whipped. If you cry out, you will be punished. You must absorb the pain in silence. Or perhaps your job is to be a nomenclator. A living address book, you walk beside your master, whispering the names of people he meets. You are his external hard drive. You have no identity of your own. Your mind is filled only with his social network. There were slaves whose sole job was to fold clothes. Slaves whose job was to hold the chamber pot. Slaves whose job was to wipe the master after the toilet. You are an object. You are touched, moved, and used without consent. In the baths, you are the strigil scraper. You absorb the abuse of a master who had a bad day at the Senate. If a master is murdered in his home, Roman law decrees that all slaves in the household must be executed. It doesn't matter if you were asleep in the barn. It doesn't matter if you were a child. You are part of the body of the household, and the body must be purged. This is the silence behind the noise of Rome. The millions of eyes watching from the corners, seeing the gluttony, the filth, and the violence, forced to remain silent witnesses to the empire of cruelty. We have talked about the dirt on the skin. Now let's talk about the dirt inside. Modern archaeology has examined the latrines of Rome. They have analyzed the fossilized feces, the coprolites. They expected to find that the Romans with their baths and aqueducts were healthy. They found the opposite. The average Roman was a walking ecosystem of parasites. Trichuris trichura. The whipworm, it lived in the large intestine. It burrowed into the lining of the gut, causing pain, diarrhea, and anemia, Ascaris lumbricoides. The giant roundworm, these could grow up to a foot long inside the stomach. Why? Because of the garum, the fish sauce. It was made by fermenting fish entrails in the sun. If the fermentation didn't get hot enough, fish tapeworm eggs survived. Romans poured these eggs onto every meal. And the salads. The vegetables from the market gardens surrounding the city. These gardens were fertilized with night soil, human waste collected from the cesspits. The eggs of the roundworms were recycled from the latrine to the salad bowl and back to the gut. The baths didn't help. The warm, unchlorinated water of the caldarium was the perfect transmission vector. So, when you picture a Roman senator giving a speech, picture him pale from anemia, his stomach churning with roundworms, his energy drained by the parasites stealing his nutrients. The empire was eating the world, but the worms were eating the empire. The sun has set completely now. The city is dark, pitch black. There are no streetlights. To walk out at night is to walk into a void. But the darkness is broken by the orange glow of fear. Fire Rome is a tinderbox. Wooden upper stories, oil lamps, open braziers. A gust of wind, a tipped lamp, and a block goes up in flames. Enter the vigiles. The night watch, the firefighters of Rome, they are freedmen, patrolling the streets with buckets, axes, and blankets soaked in vinegar. They carry siphones, primitive fire pumps. But they are also the police, and Rome at night is a dangerous place. Without streetlights, crime is rampant. The footpad, the mugger, waits in the shadow of the aqueduct. If you are rich, you have torchbearers and bodyguards. If you are poor, you hurry, listening for footsteps behind you. You hear the shout of fire, incendium. You look out your window. The building across the street is burning. The vigiles arrive. But they don't just spray water, they tear things down. To stop a fire in a crowded city, you must create a fire break. They use hooks to pull down the neighboring walls, destroying your home to save the block. And sometimes a wealthy man like Crassus arrives with his own private fire brigade. He stands before the burning building and offers to buy it from the terrified owner for a fraction of its value. If you sell, he puts out the fire. If you don't, he lets it burn. It is extortion by inferno. You watch the flames reflect in the eyes of the rats scurrying away from the heat. The smell of burning pine mixes with the smell of burning wool and panic. You close the shutters. You check your own oil lamp, making sure it is stable. You lie back in the dark, listening to the screams of the fire brigade and the crash of falling timber. The city is fragile. It is a stack of kindling waiting for a spark. And in the dark, every sound is a threat. You need a drink to calm your nerves, a cup of wine. Roman wine is thick, syrupy. It is often watered down, but the best wine, the sweetest wine, has a secret ingredient. Sapa is grape must, boiled down until it is a thick concentrate. It is used to sweeten wine and preserve fruit. But to make sapa taste right, Romans believed it had to be boiled in lead pots. Lead acetate, which forms when the acid of the grapes reacts with the pot, is sweet. They called it sugar of lead. It makes the wine delicious. It makes the fruit preserves last longer. It also causes saturnine gout. It attacks the nervous system. It causes severe abdominal pain, known as lead colic. It causes cognitive decline. Historians speculate that the aristocracy of Rome was slowly going mad from lead poisoning. The aqueducts were lined with lead, yes, but the calcium buildup often shielded the water. The wine, however, was a direct dose. You sip your wine. It tastes sweet, rich, complex. You feel the warmth spreading in your chest. You don't feel the heavy metal accumulating in your bones. You don't feel the neurons in your brain misfiring. You pour another cup, a toast to the emperor, an emperor who might be paranoid, erratic, and cruel, perhaps because he too drinks from the leaden cup. The civilization is poisoning itself with its own sophistication. The sweetness is the toxin. The wine is finished. The fire across the street has died down to glowing embers. The noise of the city has settled into a low, rhythmic hum. You are tired, your body scrubbed and scraped and oiled, feels heavy. The parasites in your gut are active. The lead in your blood is circulating. The dust of the street is on your floor. You blow out the lamp. The room plunges into total darkness. You pull the wool blanket up. It scratches your chin. You listen to the breathing of the others in the room, the snoring of your family, the rustling of the mice in the straw. You are a Roman. You are the master of the Mediterranean. You have roads that go to the ends of the earth. You have laws that will shape the future for 2,000 years. But here, in the dark, you are just a warm body in a cold room, hoping the roof doesn't leak, hoping the fire doesn't jump the street, hoping the fever doesn't come. History is not just marble, statues, and great speeches. It is the itch of the lice. It is the smell of the latrine. It is the taste of the lead. It is the struggle to stay clean, to stay fed, to stay alive in a world that is indifferent to your comfort. So close your eyes. Let the sounds of ancient Rome fade away. Let the shouting of the vendors turn into a murmur. Let the rumble of the carts become the rolling of the sea. Drift away from the subura. Drift away from the smoke sleep. The empire will still be here when you wake up, while you sleep. Let us return to the damp, echoing halls of the bathhouse for a moment. We spoke of theft earlier, the anxiety of leaving your tunic in a niche, watched only by a bribable slave. But what happens when the clothes are gone? There is no police force to call. The vigiles are busy with fires. So, the Romans turned to a darker form of justice. They turned to magic. Archaeologists have found hundreds of small, rolled-up sheets of lead in the springs and drains of bathhouses. These are depictions, cursed tablets. Imagine the level of petty, seething rage required to scratch a message onto a piece of lead and throw it into the water. You have to walk home in a borrowed towel, so you curse the thief. The texts are specific, they are petty, they are disturbing. May he who stole my hooded cloak lose his mind and his eyes in the temple of the goddess. I give to the goddess Sulis the thief who stole my bathing tunic. May he not sleep or sit or eat until he brings it back. May the worms eat his intestines. This is the psychological hygiene of Rome. It is a society where justice is transactional and supernatural. You don't file a report, you wish gangrene upon a stranger. Think of the water in the sacred spring. It is filled not just with coins, but with these heavy, toxic scrolls of hate. The lead dissolves slowly, adding its poison to the water, while the words of the curse remain. A silent scream of frustration from a man who just wanted a bath and lost his shirt. You are lying in your bed in the insula. The wool blanket is heavy, but you are not alone in the dark. Rome is an empire of pests. There are no window screens, there are no pesticides. Cimex lectularius. The bedbug, the Romans knew them well. Pliny the Elder wrote about them. He actually and disturbingly suggested they had medicinal value. He recommended crushing bedbugs and mixing them with vinegar to treat snake bites, or putting them in a bean shell and swallowing them to cure a fever, but mostly they just bite. You feel a tickle on your leg, you shift. The straw in your mattress rustles. The straw is old. It is a perfect breeding ground. Lice are even more common, pediculus humanus. In a world where bathing is done in communal water and clothes are washed in urine, lice thrive. They live in the seams of your tunic. They live in the pleats of the toga. Sulla, the great dictator of Rome, supposedly died of theriasis, a disease where the lice multiplied so fast they swarmed his body, eating him alive. It is likely an exaggeration by his enemies, but it reflects a very real fear. You scratch your scalp. It is not just dry skin. It is the movement of the colony. You might try to comb them out with a fine-toothed bone comb, cracking the nits between your thumbnails. It is a nightly ritual for the poor. And the mosquitoes. Rome is surrounded by marshes. The Roman fever, malaria, is a constant killer. The mosquitoes whine in the darkness. You slap your neck. You leave a smear of blood. You are the apex predator of the Mediterranean. Yet in your own bed, you are merely food. If the wind changes direction in the night, shifting to blow from the west, across the river, you might smell something even worse than the cloaca maxima. You smell the tanneries, located in the Transtiberim, modern Trastevere. Away from the respectable centre is the leather industry. Rome needs leather. For sandals, for armour, for tents, for harnesses. But making leather is a vile process. First, the skin is stripped from the animal. It has bits of meat and fat clinging to it. It rots. To stop the rot and remove the hair, the skins are soaked. In what? Urine again. And dog feces. The enzyme bait, found in dog manure, helps to soften the collagen in the leather. So there are pits. Vats filled with a slurry of water, urine, and dog dung collected from the streets. Men stand in these pits, working the skins, kneading the feces into the hide to make it supple. The smell is indescribable. It is the smell of death mixed with the smell of waste. It hangs over the district like a shroud. The tanners live there. They eat their lunch next to the vats. Their skin absorbs the enzymes. They are permanently marked by the scent of their trade. When you strap on your sandals in the morning, or when a soldier puts on his breastplate, he is wearing the product of this filth. The gleaming armor of the legion is held together by leather cured in dung. Let us look at the river itself, the Tiber. Father Tiber. It is the drain of the city. We mentioned the sewer emptying into it, but it is also the dumping ground for everything else. Dead animals, construction, rubble, broken pottery, and bodies. Criminals executed at the Gemonian stairs are strangled and thrown into the river. Emperors like Elagabalus were dragged through the streets and thrown into the Tiber. The river is thick, brown, and sluggish. It creates the marshy banks where the mosquitoes breed. But here is the disturbing part: people swim in it. Boys dive for coins. Fishermen cast nets. The fish caught in the Tiber pike, the eel, are eaten. They have fed on the waste of the city. The Roman satirist, Juvenal, mocks a man for eating a fish caught near the sewer outlet, calling it fed on the flow of the cloaca. It is a closed loop. The city excretes into the river. The fish eat the excretion. The citizens eat the fish. The citizens excrete. As you sleep, the brown water churns endlessly, carrying the history of Rome's consumption out to the sea at Ostia, where it stains the blue Mediterranean with a plume of silt and civilization. You turn over in bed. Why can you not sleep? It is the noise. Julius Caesar, in his Lex Julia Municipalis, banned heavy wagons from the streets during the day. The streets were too narrow, the congestion too dangerous. So the supply chain of Rome operates at night. From dusk until dawn, the city is a construction site and a highway. The screech of ungreased axles, the iron hooves of oxen slipping on stone, the shouting of drivers stuck in a traffic jam at 3 a.m. The poet Martial complained bitterly about this. There is nowhere in this city where a poor man can get some quiet. The clatter of wagons in the winding streets stabs through my sleep. Only the rich, in their villas on the hills, surrounded by high walls and gardens, can sleep. For you, in the insula, right on the street, the wall of your bedroom vibrates with the passing commerce. You press your pillow, stuffed with feathers if you are lucky, straw if you are not, over your ears. It smells of damp wool. It muffles the sound, but not the vibration. Sleep in Rome is a luxury commodity. The poor do not sleep, they nap between the noises. We spoke of teeth cleaning earlier, but let's talk about the result. The Roman diet is heavy on garum, fish sauces, garlic, onions, and wine. It is a diet designed to produce strong odors. Halitosis is rampant. There are no mints. Romans chew on parsley or fennel seeds to mask the smell. Or they use malabathrum, an expensive spiced oil, on their tongues. But the rot is often deeper. Gum disease, scurvy, vitamin C deficiency is common among the poor who live on grain. When you speak to someone close up in the forum, you are hit with the breath of the Republic. It is the smell of fermentation. Ovid advises women, let not your breath be offensive. He suggests keeping a distance. Kissing in Rome is a hazardous affair. It is an exchange of flavors. The fish sauce from dinner, the wine from the tavern, the crushed bone toothpaste, and the underlying scent of a tooth decaying in a jaw that has never seen a dentist. As the sun begins to rise again, hitting the white marble of the temples, the city exhales. It is a collective breath of millions of people, a cloud of biological reality rising up to meet the morning. You wake up, you taste the morning air, and you reach for the water basin to start it all over again. Let us zoom in on a small, mundane detail. The tools of cleaning. We mentioned the xylospongium, the sponge on a stick. But have you thought about the maintenance of the sponge? It sits in a bucket of salt water and vinegar. Vinegar is a mild antiseptic, yes, but does it kill everything? The sponge is organic. It breaks down. Bits of sea sponge flake off. Now imagine the abrasion. You are wiping with a decaying sea creature soaked in vinegar. The salt stings, the sponge crumbles, and the stick. It is wood. Wood absorbs moisture. Wood rots. The handle of the communal toilet brush is a damp, porous vector for bacteria. There is no janitor coming in to replace it every hour. It is replaced when it breaks. Now consider the strigil again. The metal scraper. It is often shared. You rent it at the baths, or you use your own. If you have a mole, a wart, a small scab, the strigil rips it off. You bleed. The metal is now contaminated. You hand it to your slave, who wipes it on a rag that has wiped 100 other strigils. Then the next man uses it. The transmission of bloodborne pathogens in the bathhouse is a silent epidemic. Hepatitis, viruses. They travel on the edge of the cleaning tool. You think you are cleaning yourself, but you are actually participating in a massive citywide blood brother ritual. Rome is surprisingly efficient at recycling, but in ways that might make you shudder. Broken glass. Rome produces tons of glass. Bottles for perfume, flasks for oil. When they break, they are not thrown away. They are collected. Broken shards are gathered by the scrutarius, the rag and bone man. They are sold back to the glassblowers. Why does this matter? Because the glass is melted down again. But the piles of broken glass sit in the alleys. They are mixed with the filth of the street and the urine. We keep coming back to it. But it was a tax revenue stream. The Emperor Vespasian placed a tax on the urine collected from public latrines. When his son Titus complained that it was disgusting to tax bodily waste, Vespasian held up a gold coin and asked, "Does this smell?" Pecunia non olet, money does not smell. But the city did smell. The collection network involved carts sloshing with urine moving through the streets to the laundries and the tanneries. The economy of Rome was lubricated by waste. The gold coin in your pocket, the one you used to buy bread, might have come from the tax on the very latrine you just visited. Everything is connected. The bread, the coin, the waste, the laundry, the toga. It is a closed circle of matter, endlessly recycled, endlessly decaying. Finally, look at the dust on your windowsill. Rome has been burning its dead for centuries. Cremation was the standard for a long time before burial became popular later. Great pyres were built outside the city walls. The bodies of the rich and the soldiers were burned on stacks of pine logs. The smoke rises. It carries the ash of wood and the ash of bone. It settles on the fields. It settles on the roofs. It settles on the water in the aqueduct. When the wind blows from the Appian Way, the dust in the air contains the microscopic particles of the ancestors. You breathe them in. The calcium of the past Romans becomes part of the structure of the living Romans. You are inhaling the Republic. You are sneezing out the Empire. The city is built on layers of its own history. Quite literally, the ground level of Rome rises over the centuries because they simply build on top of the rubble and the trash of the previous generation. You are walking on a mound of debris, waste, and ash that is 30 feet deep. So, as you lay your head down, remember, you are not just sleeping in a city. You are sleeping on a graveyard, breathing the smoke of the dead, washing in the water of the lead pipes, and wearing the wool of the urine vats. This is the glory of Rome, eternal, dusty, and undeniably human. It is morning again. You are hungry. You reach for the staple of the Roman diet, panis, bread. It looks rustic and hearty, a round loaf scored into 8 sections, baked to a dark golden brown. But pick it up, it is heavy, dense. Take a bite, crunch. That is not the crust, that is the bread itself. The flour for this bread was ground in a mill, a molar. 2 massive stones rubbing against each other, hour after hour, driven by a donkey walking in endless circles. As the stones grind the wheat, they also grind themselves. Microscopic chips of basalt and lava rock break off and mix with the flour. There is no sifting process fine enough to remove it all. So every time you chew, you are acting as a secondary millstone. You are grinding rock against enamel. Look at the teeth of an average Roman adult. They are worn flat. The cusps are gone. The nerves are often exposed. By the age of 40, your smile is a landscape of erosion. The bread is keeping you alive, but it is slowly erasing your ability to eat it. And if you are poor, you get the dirty bread, panis sordidus. It might contain chalk to whiten it, or sawdust to bulk it up. You dip the hard crust into wine to soften it, not just for flavor, but to save your jaw from the geological warfare hidden inside your breakfast. You are thirsty. You walk to the street corner, to the lacus, the public fountain. It is a beautiful stone basin, carved with the face of a lion or a god. Water pours endlessly from a lead pipe in the lion's mouth. It looks refreshing. But watch how people drink. There are no disposable cups. There is no sanitation. A man walks up, he puts his mouth directly on the lead pipe, he drinks. He wipes his mouth with the back of his hand. Then a dog jumps up, lapping at the water spilling over the edge. Then a slave washes a bucket that was used for who knows what. Then a woman washes her vegetables in the basin. Then a man with a visible sore on his lips steps up and puts his mouth on the exact same spot on the pipe the first man used. You are thirsty, you have no choice, you step up. You place your lips on the cold, wet metal, worn smooth by the mouths of a million other thirsting citizens. You taste the water, cool and sweet, and you try not to think about the saliva of the entire neighborhood that coats the spout. This fountain is the social network of the block. It is also the super spreader event of the quarter. Every sip is a game of biological roulette. Let's follow your nose down to the docks near the horia, the warehouses. The smell changes. It is no longer the smell of sewage or smoke. It is a thick umami punch to the gut. You are near a garum factory. Garum is the ketchup, the soy sauce, the salt of Rome. They put it on eggs, meat, even in desserts. But how is it made? Imagine huge vats open to the sun. Into these vats, workers dump the intestines of mackerel, anchovies, and tuna. Not the fillets, the guts, the blood, the gills. They mix it with salt. And then they leave it. For months, in the heat of the Italian summer, the fish guts rot. But the salt prevents them from turning into poison. Instead, they liquefy enzymes in the stomachs of the fish, break down the flesh into a brown, salty sludge. The smell is so overpowering that garum factories are often banned from residential neighborhoods. It is the smell of controlled death. Workers have to stir this sludge daily. They stand over the vats, breathing in the fumes of fermenting fish protein. When it is finished, they strain it. The clear amber liquid is garum, the leftover sludge at the bottom is alec, the rich buy the clear liquid, the poor buy the sludge. So when you sit down to a cheap meal in a tavern and you dip your bread into a savory paste, remember, you are eating the dregs of the fermented intestines that have been baking in the sun for 3 months. It is delicious, it is Roman, and it is basically liquid rot. You return to your apartment building, the insula. We talked about the smell and the chamber pots. But let's talk about the structure. Rome is a vertical city. Space is money. Landlords build high 5, 6, sometimes 7 stories. But there are no building inspectors, no codes. The contractor used cheap mortar. He mixed too much sand with the lime. He used timber that wasn't fully seasoned. You lie in your bed on the 4th floor. You hear a sound creak. It is not the wind. It is the building settling. Juvenal, the satirist, wrote that we live in a city propped up by slender poles. He wasn't joking. Insular collapses are common. You wake up in the middle of the night to a thunderous crash down the street. A cloud of dust rolls through your window. An entire building has just pancaked, trapping hundreds of families in the rubble. There is no rescue squad with hydraulic jacks. There are just neighbors digging with their hands. So every crack in your plaster is a threat. Every time the floor tilts slightly, you wonder, is tonight the night gravity wins? And if the building doesn't fall, it might burn. We spoke of the vigiles. But in a wooden trap like this, if the stairs catch fire, there is no fire escape. You are trapped in a chimney. Living in a Roman apartment is a constant, low-level anxiety. You are suspended in the air on cheap wood and bad concrete, waiting for the crack that signals the end. Back to the barber, the tonsure. We mentioned the razor, but let's look at the basin. You sit in the chair. He's about to shave you. He needs to wet your face. He dips a sponge into a small bronze bowl of water. He wipes your face. He shaves you. You bleed a little. He wipes the blood off with the sponge. He rinses the sponge in the bowl. The water turns pink. The next customer sits down. Does the barber change the water? Water is heavy. It has to be carried from the fountain. He does not. He uses the same pink lukewarm water. He uses the same sponge. He wipes the next man's face with your blood. If you have a skin disease, he has it now. If he has a virus, you have it now. The basin is a communal soup of every customer's face. Sweat, blood, saliva, and hair swirling in a tepid broth that touches everyone. You pay for the privilege of a shave, and you walk away with the biological footprint of the entire neighborhood smeared on your cheeks. Let's talk about texture. Touch your clothes. You are likely wearing wool. Cotton is rare and expensive, imported from Egypt or India. Silk is for the ultra-rich, so you wear wool. But this isn't cashmere. This is Roman wool. It is spun by hand. It retains the lanolin, the natural grease of the sheep. This makes it somewhat waterproof, which is good. But it also makes it sticky. Dust clings to it. And it is rough. The fibers are coarse. You wear a tunic next to your skin. There is no soft undershirt, just the wool. It itches, constantly. When it gets wet with sweat, it smells of wet sheep. When it dries, it stiffens. And washing it, we know how that happens. Urine. So your clothes are scratchy, greasy, and smell faintly of ammonia. They chafe your armpits. They rub your neck raw. Romans don't just endure the city, they endure their own clothes. Every movement is a slight abrasion. To be comfortable is a concept that barely exists. You are either too hot in heavy wool or too cold in thin wool, and always you are itching. Sanitation is a loose concept. We know about the chamber pots, but what about sickness? The Roman stomach is constantly under assault. Bad water, spoiled meat. You are walking through the forum. A man in front of you stops. He leans against a column and he vomits. There is no shame. There is no rushing to a bathroom. There are no bathrooms. He purges onto the paving stones. He wipes his mouth. He continues walking. The street sweepers, they are few and far between. The sun beats down on the mess. The flies arrive. You have to step over it. This is a daily occurrence. The streets are a tapestry of bodily functions. Urine splashes on the walls. Feces in the gutters, vomit on the corners. The grandeur of the marble statues is surrounded by the reality of human biology. You can look up and see the face of Jupiter, carved in stone, looking serene. But look down, and you see the lunch of a stranger baking in the heat. Rome is a city of high art and low filth, existing in the same square foot of space. Night falls again. You light your lamp, your lucerna. It is a small clay pot filled with olive oil and a linen wick. The flame is weak. It smokes. Look at the ceiling of your room. It is black, not painted black, soot black. You are breathing this. Every night, you are inhaling the particulate matter of burning vegetable oil. Roman lungs, when examined in autopsies or preserved remains, are often black. Anthracosis. You are smoking passively every single night. And the oil, it is often rancid. The lamp oil is the lowest grade, the stuff unfit for eating. It smells sharp and acrid. So your evening relaxation, your time to read or talk, is spent in a haze of carcinogenic smoke. You cough. It is a dry, hacking cough. Everyone has it. It is the cough of the indoors. The light is dim, flickering, barely holding back the dark. And in that dim light, the soot settles on your skin, on your food, in your lungs. You are slowly becoming part of the carbon cycle of the city. Finally, let us think about the invisible lead, plumbum. It is the miracle metal of Rome. It carries the water. It lines the pots. It makes the makeup white. It sweetens the wine. It is everywhere, and it is silent. It has no smell, no bad taste. In fact, it tastes sweet, but it is there, in the bones of every person you meet. The emperor's erratic rage lead, the infertility of the noble families lead, the gout crippling the senators. Lead, it is the slow, quiet poison that runs through the veins of the empire. You drink your water. It is cool. It is refreshing. and with every cup, you are drinking the decline of the civilization. The empire is not falling because of barbarians at the gates. It is falling because of the heavy metal in the cup. You are living in a gilded cage, and the bars are made of lead. Sleep well, knowing that the very water that sustains you is also slowly turning you into stone. You are hungry again, but you have no kitchen in your apartment. Cooking indoors is a fire hazard. So, like most Romans of the lower class, you go out. You head to the Popina. This is the Roman dive bar, fast food joint. It is a small, dark room opening onto the street. The smell hits you first. It is the smell of cheap wine, boiled chickpeas, and sausages that have been hanging in the smoke a little too long. You squeeze onto a stool. The counter is stone, with jars of food sunk into it to keep them warm. This is the thermopolium counter. You order a cup of wine. The barkeep dips a ladle into a large jar. He pours it into a cup. Look at the cup. It is red pottery, terra sigillata. But look at the rim. It is chipped. It is stained purple from thousands of previous sips. Did he wash it? He dipped it in a bucket of cold water. That is all. You are drinking from the same cup as the mule driver who is just here and the slave who is coughing in the corner. The wine is warm. It is mixed with water, usually hot water from a lead boiler. It tastes of resin and pitch used to seal the amphorae. You order a sausage. It is greasy, salty, and possibly made of meat you wouldn't want to identify. Botulus. It might be pork, it might be donkey. You eat it with your fingers. There are no napkins here. You wipe your grease on your tunic or on the dog that is begging at your feet. In the corner, men are gambling with dice made of bone. They are shouting. The air is thick with smoke from the oil lamps. This is the living room of the poor. It is warm, it is loud, and it is a petri dish of the city's bacteria. Perhaps you need to leave the city. You travel along the Appian Way. Night falls. You cannot sleep on the road. Wolves and bandits are real threats. You stop at a mansio, a roadside inn. If you thought the insula was bad, the mansio is a special kind of hell. You pay for a bed. But you do not get a private room. You get a spot in a dormitory. The bed is a wooden frame with a mattress of straw. The straw moves, flees. Pulex irritans. They are jumping. The previous traveller left them behind, along with his sweat and his lice. You lie down. The man next to you is a stranger. He smells of garlic and horses. He is snoring. There is no ventilation. The room smells of unwashed travellers, wet wool, and the chamber pot in the corner that serves 20 men. The innkeeper is likely a cheat. The food is likely watered down. The wine is vinegar, and the sheets. If there are sheets, they are grey and stiff. You wrap your cloak tight around you, trying to create a barrier between your skin and the infestation in the straw. You scratch. You doze. You wake up to the sound of someone else scratching. Travel in Rome is not a vacation. It is an endurance test against the parasitic life of the road. Back in the city near the river port, there is a hill. It is 115 feet high. It covers an area of 20,000 square meters. It is not a natural hill. It is Monte Testaccio. It is made entirely of broken pottery. 53 million broken amphorae. These jars carried olive oil from Spain and North Africa. But oil spoils. It goes rancid, and it soaks into the clay. You cannot reuse an oil jar. You cannot wash it. So the Romans smashed them, millions of them. They piled the shards here, sprinkling lime over them to mask the smell of rotting oil. But in the summer heat, the lime fails. Walk near the hill, the smell is heavy, cloying. It is the smell of millions of gallons of ancient, decaying fat. It is a sweet, sickening, rancid odor that coats the back of your throat. Flies swarm the hill. Rats nest in the crevices of the shards. This is the garbage dump of the empire. A monument to consumption, a man-made mountain of waste that towers over the warehouses, leaking the scent of spoiled grease into the wind. It is a physical reminder that for every drop of golden oil on a senator's salad, there is a shard of oil-soaked clay rotting in the sun. You seek spiritual relief. You go to a temple, the temple of Jupiter, the temple of Mars. You expect incense, myrrh, and you smell that. It is sweet and smoky, but underneath it, the smell of a slaughterhouse. Roman religion runs on blood sacrifice. Sacrificium, on festival days, bulls, pigs, and sheep are killed by the hundreds. Their throats are cut on the altar. The blood drains into pits or is caught in bowls. The internal organs, the extar, are removed and burned on the altar fire. The smell of burning liver, burning kidneys, burning fat. It is the smell of a barbecue gone wrong. It mixes with the copper scent of fresh blood pooling on the marble. The priests, the popa, stand ankle deep in gore. They are butchers in holy robes. Flies are everywhere. They land on the altar. They land on the statues of the gods. You pray for health, while standing in a cloud of smoke made from burning entrails. The favor of the gods is bought with death, and the house of the divine smells like a meat market in the sun. You walk past a wealthy house. On the floor of the entryway is a mosaic, a black dog with bare teeth. Beneath it, the words Cave Canum, beware of the dog. It is not a joke. Roman guard dogs are not pets. They are Molossians, massive ancestors of the Mastiff. They are bred for violence. They are kept chained during the day, hungry and frustrated. At night, they are loosed. But it is not just the guard dogs. Rome is overrun with feral dogs. They roam in packs. They eat the garbage in the streets. They eat the bodies in the puticuli. They carry rabies. There is no cure. If a stray dog bites you in the subura, you die a horrific death of madness and hydrophobia. So you carry a stick. You walk wide. You listen for the growl in the shadows. The dog is not man's best friend here. It is a scavenger, a competitor, and a potential killer. The Cave Canum mosaic is the only warning you get. We spoke of the tax on urine, but consider the collector. His job is to walk the streets with a cart. He stops at the dolia, the urine jars on the corners. He has to lift them. They are heavy with liquid. He pours them into the vat on his cart. He splashes. It gets on his hands, it gets on his tunic. He smells of ammonia so strongly that people cross the street to avoid him. He is essential. Without him, the laundry stops. The tanning stops. The teeth whitening stops. He drives his cart through the crowded streets, the liquid sloshing with every bump. He is the tanker truck of the ancient world, transporting the golden chemical that keeps Rome clean, while he himself remains permanently, irrevocably dirty. The Tiber is a moody god. Every few years, he rises. The floodwaters pour into the Campus Martius. They fill the basements of the warehouses. They flood the insulae. When the water recedes, it leaves something behind. Mud, but not clean mud. It is river slime mixed with the contents of the sewers that backed up. It covers the streets in a layer of grey, stinking sludge. Dead fish rot on the pavement. The bodies of drowned rats are everywhere. The basements are filled with mold. The grain in the warehouses spoils, swelling and bursting, smelling of fermented rot. The city has to be scraped clean. Citizens are out with shovels, pushing the river sludge back into the river. Mosquitoes explode in population. Malaria spikes. The flood is not just water, it is a delivery system for every toxin the river holds. And for weeks after, the watermark on the buildings is a line of filth, reminding you that you live in a swamp that pretends to be a city. And so, we reach the end of our journey through the grime of Rome. We have seen the gold and the marble, but we have also smelled the sulfur and the rot. Rome is a paradox. It is the pinnacle of engineering, yet it is poisoned by lead. It is the height of cleanliness, yet it washes with urine. It is the master of the world, yet it is eaten by worms. As you drift off to sleep, let the image of the white toga fade. Replace it with the reality, a heavy, scratchy wool tunic, stained with sweat, smelling of smoke and garlic. Replace the image of the pristine white columns with the reality, brick walls covered in soot, streets covered in mud, air thick with the dust of the dead. It is a human city, messy, smelly, dangerous. But it is quiet now. The carts have stopped. The fires are banking down. The dogs are sleeping. You are safe in your bed, far away from the lead pipes and the communal sponge. Rest now. The history is done. The dust has settled. Good night. You thought the journey was over. You thought the sleep had claimed you. In the eternal city, there is always another layer of grime to uncover. The documentary credits may have rolled, but the machinery of the empire grinds on. If you are still awake, lying in the quiet dark, let us dig deeper. Let us look at the industries that created the smells, the toxins, and the dust we have already explored. We have seen the result. Now, let us witness the process. The night is still young. The history is still dirty. You see a senator walking through the forum. His toga has a broad purple stripe. The emperor wears a robe entirely of purple. It is the color of power, Tyrian purple. But do you know how it is made? It comes from a sea snail, the murex. To get the dye, thousands of snails are collected. The shells are crushed. The tiny veins containing the dye are extracted. And then they are put into lead vats. Lead again. and they are left to steep in the sun. For days, the flesh of the snails rots. It releases a juice that turns from yellow to green to blue to purple. But the smell of millions of rotting sea snails is so horrific that dye works are often banned from the city centre by law. It is a thick, cloying, nauseating stench of marine decay. The cloth is dipped in this putrid soup. It soaks up the smell. Even after washing, a fresh purple toga carries a faint, distinct scent of the Dead Sea. So when you see the emperor draped in the colour of gods, remember he is wearing the extracted essence of a million rotting snails. The scent of power is the scent of death. We spoke of the lead in the water. But where does the pipe, the fistula, come from? Travel to the foundry, the officina. Here, slaves work with molten lead. Lead has a low melting point, so it is easy to work. But when it melts, it releases fumes. The air in the foundry is sweet-tasting. That is the lead vapor. The workers stand over the crucibles. They pour the silvery liquid onto a flat bed of sand to make sheets. Then, they bend the sheets around a wooden dowel to form a tube. They seal the seam with molten lead. There are no masks. There are no fans. The slaves inhale the sweet poison all day. Their gums turn blue. The Burton's line, a sign of severe lead poisoning. Their hands shake. They stumble. They stamp the pipe with the emperor's name, Nero Claudius Caesar. Every letter is a testament to the toxic labour that built the plumbing. The water flows cool in the pipe, but the pipe was forged in a cloud of nerve damage. Let's go back inside the house. The domus we visited, the dining room. But look at the kalina, the kitchen. It is usually small, it is usually dark, and often it is located right next to the latrine. Why? Because they share the same water source or drainage. So the food is prepared in the shadow of the toilet. But look at the stove. It is a masonry counter with charcoal fires on top, whereas the chimney, there usually isn't one. Roman kitchens relied on small windows or holes in the roof. But mostly the smoke just fills the room. The walls are black with soot. The cook, often a slave, spends his life coughing in this black box. The smoke settles on the cheese. It settles on the grapes. It settles on the hanging sausages. Every meal you eat in Rome has been smoked, not for flavour, but by necessity. The kitchen is a lung-damaging box of carbon and heat, tucked away in the back of the house like a dirty secret. We shuddered at the xylospongum, the sponge on a stick. But consider the origin of the sponge. Somewhere in the Mediterranean off the coast of Greece or North Africa, a man is diving. He holds a heavy stone to drag him down. He has no tank. He holds his breath. He descends into the blue dark. The pressure builds in his ears. He scours the seafloor for sponges. He cuts them free. He surfaces. Gasping, nitrogen builds up in his blood. The bends are a risk, though they don't understand the physics of it. He does this all day. His skin is burned by the sun and salt. His lungs are stretched. He cleans the sponges. He beats them to remove the living tissue, leaving only the skeleton. Then they are shipped to Rome to be put on a stick, to be dipped in vinegar, to be used in a public latrine. The life of a diver, risking the crushing depths of the sea, ends as a tool for wiping. It is a long, tragic journey from the coral reef to the gutter. To clean the wool, we needed urine, but we also needed fuller's earth, Creta Phellonia. It is a type of clay rich in magnesium aluminum silicate. It absorbs grease. Where does it come from? Mines, underground tunnels, cramped and dusty. Men pick at the clay walls. The air is filled with fine silica dust. Silicosis, the miner's lung. They breathe in the dust. It cuts their lungs from the inside. They cough up blood. They haul the heavy sacks of clay to the surface. It is shipped to the city. The laundry worker stomps on it. The dust mixes with the urine. The clean white toga of the politician is the product of two lungs. The miner's lung filled with dust, and the fuller's lung burned by ammonia. Cleanliness is a dirty business. Olive oil, the soap, food, the fuel of Rome. Visit a trapectum, an olive press. It is harvest time. The olives are brought in by the wagon load. They are starting to ferment. The smell is heavy and yeasty. The press is a massive machine. Two hemispherical stones rotating in a stone bowl. It requires brute force to turn. Donkeys or men push the wooden beams, grind. Crunch, squelch. The sound is relentless. The stones crush the olives, pits and all. The oil oozes out. It is dark, green and murky. It is collected in vats. The air is thick with the smell of crushed vegetation. The floor is slick with oil. It is dangerous. One slip and you fall under the grinding stones or break a limb. The amurca, the watery, bitter byproduct, is drained off. It smells foul. It is used as a weed killer or a pesticide, or to seal floors. The golden oil is separated, but the press never stops. Day and night, the grinding continues. The oil must flow. Rome runs on charcoal. It heats the baths. It cooks the food. Go to the forests outside the city, the carbonari. The charcoal burners, they build massive mounds of wood. They cover them with earth and turf. They light a fire inside. They must watch it constantly. If it burns too hot, the wood turns to ash. If it burns too cool, it doesn't turn to charcoal. It smolders for days. The charcoal burners live in the smoke. Their skin is permanently stained black. Their eyes are red and weeping. They smell like a forest fire. They rake out the black lumps. They load them into sacks. They cart them into the city. When you sit in the warm caldarium, feeling the heat from the floor, you are feeling the work of the men who live in the smoke. You are warm because they are burning. You walk past a carpenter's shop. He's making furniture. He is using glue. Gluten. What is it? It is made from the hides of animals, or the hooves of horses, or the swim bladders of fish. They are boiled, endlessly boiled. The smell of boiling hooves is distinct. It is the smell of burning hair and gelatin. It is thick and nauseating. The glue pot sits on the fire, bubbling. A brown, sticky sludge. The carpenter smears it on the wood. It holds the chair together. When you sit on a Roman chair, you are supported by the rendered connective tissue of a dead horse, boiled down by a man breathing the fumes of a slaughterhouse. The Appian Way. The Flaminian Way, the roads that lead to Rome. Straight, durable stone. Look at the construction. First, a trench is dug by hand, by soldiers or slaves. Then, large stones are placed at the bottom. Statumen. Then, rubble and lime rudus. Then, fine gravel, nucleus. Finally, the paving stones. Summa crosta. These stones are massive, basalt polygonal. They fit together like a puzzle. They weigh hundreds of pounds. There are no cranes. There are ropes, pulleys, and human backs. The sound of the road building is the sound of the pickaxe, the chisel, and the grunt of exertion. Backs are broken. Hernias are common. The road is smooth so the legions can march. But the foundation of the road is the sweat and the spinal discs of the men who laid it. You walk on it effortlessly. Beneath your sandals lies a monument to human exhaustion. Finally, travel to the coast. The mouth of the Tiber, Ostia. Here are the Salinae, the salt pans. Salt is life. It preserves the meat. It makes the garum. It pays the soldiers. The salarium, salary. Shallow pools of seawater are left to evaporate in the sun. The glare is blinding. The white crystals reflect the Mediterranean sun into the eyes of the workers. They rake the salt. Their feet are in the brine all day. The salt draws the moisture out of their skin. Their legs are cracked, bleeding, and hardened. They are pickled alive. They carry the heavy baskets of salt to the barges. The salt is white and pure, but it was gathered by men who are slowly being desiccated by their own harvest. It is shipped up the river to Rome. It ends up on your table. You sprinkle it on your egg. It tastes of the sea and the sun. It is the crystallized labor of the empire. In a city of 1 million people, death is a daily industry. When a wealthy Roman takes their last breath, the family does not handle the body immediately. They call for the palinktors. These are the undertakers, the preparers of the dead. They arrive at the domus with their tools and their jars. The body is lying on the atrium floor. Rigor mortis is setting in. The palinktors must work quickly. First, the washing. They use warm water to scrub the skin, removing the sweat of the death agony. But water is not enough to mask the scent of decomposition in the Italian heap, so they use pollen powder, perfumed powder, hence their name. They massage the stiffening limbs with oils and unguents. They pack the orifices to prevent leakage. They might apply a wax mask to the face to hide the sunken cheeks. Then, the conclamatio, the ritual calling of the name. The family screams the name of the deceased 3 times. It is a wall of sound designed to ensure the soul, and the body is truly gone. Finally, they place a coin in the mouth. A quadrans or an obol, payment for Charon, the ferryman of the underworld. The palinktors leave, their hands smelling of cedar oil and death. They move to the next house. They are the makeup artists of the afterlife, ensuring that even in decay, a Roman citizen looks respectable for one last public viewing. If you break the law in Rome, if you are a traitor, a captured king, or an enemy of the state, you do not go to a rehabilitation center. You go to the Tullianum, also known as the Mamertine prison. It is located near the Forum, beneath the Temple of Concord. It has 2 levels. The upper level, the casa, is bad enough, dark, crowded, smelling of unwashed prisoners. But look at the floor. There is a hole, a small, round aperture. Through this hole, you are lowered or thrown into the lower dungeon. The Tullianum, it was originally a cistern. It is damp, cold. There is no light. None. You are sitting in absolute blackness. The smell is overwhelming. There is no latrine. The waste of the prisoners accumulates on the floor. This is the waiting room for execution. Vercingetorix, the Gallic king, died here. Jugurtha, the Numidian king, was thrown naked into this pit and whispered, "Heracles, how cold your bath is," before starving to death. You sit in the mud and the filth, listening to the dripping water and the shallow breathing of the condemned. There is no hope here. Only the rope or the starvation. It is the darkest, foulest point in the entire city, a black hole beneath the marble glory of the Forum. Walk to the Temple of Castor. Near here is the slave market. Human beings are standing on a revolving platform, the cataster. They are stripped naked. The buyers circle them like cattle. They poke, they prod, they check the teeth, they check the muscles. Look at their feet. Some have their feet whitened with chalk or gypsum. This signals that the slave is imported from across the sea. They are fresh inventory. Around their necks hang plaques tituli, describing their skills and their defects. Good cook, prone to running away, epileptic. The dealer, the mango, shouts out their qualities. He slaps their skin to show firmness. The humiliation is total. You are being assessed solely on your biological utility. Your humanity is erased. You are a tool with a voice. The chalk on your feet marks you as a stranger, a commodity, a thing to be bought and sold. And when the deal is done, you follow your new master home, walking through the dust that will coat your whitened feet, marking the end of your freedom and the beginning of your life as furniture. We have talked about cosmetics, but let us look at the ultimate luxury of hygiene. Empress Poppaea Sabina, wife of Nero. She was famous for her pale, soft skin. Her secret, she bathed in donkey milk, not a cup of milk, a bath. To maintain this habit, she required a herd of 500 female donkeys. Even when she traveled, the herd traveled with her. Imagine the logistics, the noise of 500 donkeys, the smell of the stables, the slaves required to milk them every single day. The milk is thick, warm, and sweet-smelling. Poppaea sits in a silver tub filled with a white fluid. It contains lactic acid, an alpha-hydroxy acid. It exfoliates, it softens. But consider the waste. After the bath, the milk is discarded. Gallons of nutrient-rich food poured into the drain, while the poor of the city eat bread mixed with sawdust. It is a bath of pure excess, a white ocean of privilege that requires an army of animals and slaves to sustain. She emerges soft and glowing, smelling of warm dairy, indifferent to the massive industrial effort required for her 20 minutes of soaking. We looked at the cloaca maxima from the outside, but someone has to go inside. Meet the cloacari, the sewer workers. It is a public service position, often filled by convicts or the lowest slaves. The sewer blocks a dead dog, a collapse of bricks, a build-up of sludge. The cloacari must enter. They take small boats punting through the underground river of filth, or they wade. The only light comes from their oil lamps, flickering in the methane, heavy air. They use shovels and hooks to clear the blockage. They are waist deep in the effluent of the empire. They pray to Cloacina, the goddess of the sewer. Yes, Rome has a goddess specifically for the drain. Her shrine stands in the Forum. They offer prayers that the gas doesn't suffocate them, that the current doesn't sweep them away, that the rats don't bite. They are the unseen kidneys of the city. If they stop working, the city dies of septic shock. They live in the dark so the city can live in the light. Especially hair, Roman women desire elaborate hairstyles, curls, braids, volume. But often they want blonde hair or red hair, flava or rufa. This hair does not occur naturally in most Italians. So where does it come from? Germany, Gaul, the hair of captive women. When a tribe is conquered, the women are shorn. Their hair is packed into bales and shipped to Rome. It is made into wigs, gallerus, or hairpieces. A wealthy Roman matron sits at her vanity. Her slave, the ornatrix, weaves the hair of a Germanic slave into the matron's own dark locks. She is literally wearing the spoils of war on her head. The hair of a woman who watched her village burn is now a fashion statement in the capital. Or she might bleach her own hair, using a soap made from goat fat and beechwood ash. A recipe learned from the Gauls. It smells of rancid fat. It burns the scalp, but it turns the hair the color of the enemy. We mentioned white lead makeup, cerussa. But the manufacturing process deserves a closer look. It is a chemical industry run on fermentation. Workers take thin sheets of lead, they roll them up, they place them inside clay pots. Inside the pot, there is a separate compartment filled with vinegar. The pots are covered, and then they are buried in heaps of manure. Horse dung, cow dung. Why? The rotting manure generates heat. It also releases carbon dioxide. The heat evaporates the vinegar. The acetic acid vapor reacts with the lead. The carbon dioxide from the dung completes the reaction. Over 30 days, the dull grey lead turns into a flecky white crust, lead carbonate. The workers dig up the pots from the dung heaps. They scrape the white crust off the lead sheets. They grind it into powder. This is the beauty product of the elite, created by burying heavy metal in animal feces and letting it cook. The pure white powder of the matron's face is born in the heat of the stable's waste. Let's clear up the myth. A vomitorium is the exit passage of a stadium, spewing people out into the streets. But the act of vomiting at a feast, that is real. Look at the floor of the triclinium again. We mentioned the debris, but there is a specific mosaic style, the aserotos oikos, the unswept room. Wealthy Romans commissioned mosaics that looked like food trash. Realistic depictions of fish bones, lettuce leaves, and shells permanently inlaid in the floor. Why? To show that they feast every day. My floor is always dirty with food because I am always eating. It is a permanent stone celebration of waste. And the real vomit, the slave comes with a bucket. He uses sawdust to soak it up. He sweeps it away. Saffron-scented, sawdust is used to mask the smell. The party continues. The mosaic bones mix with the real bones. The illusion of excess blends with the reality of gluttony. Let us return to the mouth. You have a loose tooth. Or a gap, the Romans have false teeth. Dentures. They are made of bone or ivory. Sometimes human teeth pulled from the dead. But how do they stay in? Gold wire. The dentist drills holes in your remaining healthy teeth. He uses a bow drill, a string wrapped around a spindle, moved back and forth. Zut, zut. The friction burns. The vibration rattles your skull. He threads the gold wire through your healthy tooth, then through the false tooth, then through the next healthy tooth. He twists it tight. It is a bridge. It pulls on your healthy teeth. It aches constantly, food gets stuck in the wire, but you have a smile of ivory and gold, wired into your jaw with tension and pain. You have died. The palinktors have done their work. Now, the procession. If you are rich, it is a parade. Musicians, professional mourners, women paid to scream and rip their clothes. Actors wearing the death masks, the imagines of your ancestors. But if you are poor, you are carried out at night, to avoid polluting the city with the sight of death. 4 men carry a simple bier, the vespillo, the evening carriers. They walk quickly through the dark streets. The body is wrapped in a simple shroud. They head to the puticuli or a simple grave outside the walls. There is no music, no actors, just the sound of sandals on stone and the shuffling of the bearers. You are taken out of the city you built. You leave your apartment, your chamber pot, your tools. You become part of the dust outside the walls. The city continues. The water flows in the aqueducts. The fires burn in the baths. The noise of the wagons rises again. Rome is an eternal machine, and you are just a temporary cog sleep now. The history is complete.